please. And we're ready.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of Hamilton City Council for August 25th, 2021, 6:01. We're here in the City Council Chambers, 345 High Street in Hamilton. We do have one public hearing this evening to be heard later on the agenda. Involves a zoning change in the Stahlhaber area. Let's do a roll call, please.
Pullman. Present. Fear.
Present.
Vaughn.
Present.
Ryan.
Here.
Nab.
Present.
Moeller.
Present. Okay, there's been a request for an executive session prior to the regular meeting continuing. So I believe we need a motion that we go in executive session for the stated purpose, what you're going to give us, Madam Law Director.
Yes, to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Is there a motion that we recess the regular meeting and convene the executive session for that stated purpose?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Nab, seconded by Vice Mayor Pullman. Roll call vote on that, please.
Pullman.
Yes.
Fear.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Nab.
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
We're going to go into executive session. It's 6:02. We'll come out to do the rest of the regular meeting. So it won't take too awful long, I don't believe.
If everyone could please speak into the microphones for the people in the lobby. And we're back.
All right, thank you. It's 6:26. Is there a motion that council close the executive session and reconvene the regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fear, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Roll call vote to go back into the regular meeting.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
Okay, to start the meeting by offering a prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able. Almighty God, from Afghanistan to Tennessee to Washington, D.C., we as a world, a country, and a city have challenges. Please give us all insight, strength, and guidance to address challenges that are before us and improve our condition, and protect those who protect us. Amen. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We now go to special presentations, and the first one happens to be for one of our all-stars who's leaving the team right now, Dan Moats. If you'll come on up here, please. And Edwin, do you want to join us up here? Would that be okay? Joshua, do you want to be up here with your friend? Thank you, sir. Is there a video that we got? There are. Okay. All right. We got it. Okay. All right. We have a few video or photographs to see here before we get started.
That's always
Like a cake or something like that.
You're on the spot now.
Pancake. Okay. What do we have to take a look at here? Wow. Is that where it all started?
For Hamilton, yes, sir.
Thumbprint or handprints on all those. Your thumbprint or handprints on all those projects. Is that right?
That's correct.
Except for that really old one in the middle. I think that was like 1800s.
That was Joshua's, I think.
Do you have some family? Do you have some family here by chance?
I got my wife Nancy,
Okay.
my son Jason, his son Jason Jr., and his wife Jessica back there,
Okay, so heck, you want them to come on up here with you?
if they'd like to.
If you want to come on up here, come on up. At least your wife ought to come on up here. but you have truly been the go-to guy for as long as I've been here, and thank God you came back when you came back, because we've always needed and appreciated your expertise, your job skill set, the way you lead people. I mean, it's going to be missed. So we got a proclamation for you. Then I'm sure Josh is going to say a few words. Edwin could say a few words, and your wife's going to have probably a few words too. But we'll see how that goes. Office of the Mayor, proclamation. Whereas Hamilton City Council and City Administration would like to give recognition and show appreciation to Dan Moats for his excellent work and dedication to serving the citizens of Hamilton. And whereas Dan began his near 17-year career with the City of Hamilton in July of 1999 at the 3rd Street Power Plant. And whereas serving as the electric production superintendent, Dan's leadership and his impressive job skills led to his promotion as the manager of power plant operations in 2009. And whereas, though Dan pursued other opportunities, he leaned back on those relationships he had built during the first part of his career with the city, when he was hired back as the Assistant Director of Electric in 2015, and later earning the title of Director of Utility Operations in 2017. And whereas during the second part of Dan's career at the city, he spent the last 6 years serving the water, wastewater, and hydroelectric power plants, along with the transmission and distribution systems. And whereas due to his years of knowledge, experience, and relationship building that Dan has provided to the city, he's able to work in many different roles towards the end of his career. As the Director of Utility Operations in 2019, shortly after his promotion, he led the Department of Infrastructure as the Acting Executive Director in 2020 for almost a year until his retirement in August of 2021. And whereas thanks to the contributions and skills of Dan, in collaboration with many others, the City of Hamilton has received many infrastructure awards, such as the System Operational Achievement Recognition, SOAR, from the American Public Gas Association, the Reliable Public Power Provider designation from the American Public Power Association, and the numerous awards for producing excellent quality and great tasting water from the American Water Works Association, the AWWA. Therefore, I, Pat Moeller, Mayor of the City of Hamilton, Ohio, and members of Hamilton City Council, do hereby recognize and thank Dan Moats for his service of nearly 17 years to the City of Hamilton, congratulate him on his retirement, and wish him the best in his future endeavors. Some of myself as mayor and acknowledged by all members of council. So this is for you, Dan. I'm not going to give you one of these blankets, but we're going to give this to you. Say a few words, Edwin, about this gentleman that you've worked with.
Sure. For the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of working with Dan, and putting together some pictures. The 3 Ps kind of came to mind, and it's plants, projects, and people. When I think of Dan Moats, that's what I think about. He's passionate about those items, and he comes into work every day, and he leads, and he sets the pace for the entire team. And Dan's here early, he's here late, and when something needs to get done, he is the person who stays here and makes sure he has the team in place to get the job done and lead, and everybody else sees that leadership when it walks into the room, and we're all inspired by that, and it energizes all of us to do our very best every single day to serve the city. And we appreciate that, Dan. We appreciate your guidance, and you're going to be sorely, sorely missed by this entire organization.
Joshua.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of our residents, I'm not even sure, are fully aware of how sophisticated a utility system that we have in Hamilton, Ohio. We're the only city in Ohio that owns and operates electric, gas, water, and sewer systems. Dan Moats, hands down, has been the best plant operator I have seen. His ability to, as Edwin said, to focus on people, plants, but just get things done for our residents has been incredible. And again, as I think we're now the 10th largest city in the state of Ohio, our budget is the 6th highest because of our utility budgets. And it's a very complicated process. He has done a tremendous job to simplify it. He's done a tremendous job of leading it. And I know that we're going to miss you. Thank you, Dan.
You want to say a few words about him?
I'll try.
I'll ask her say a few words about you.
I don't think so. Go ahead.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just going to say, if you need him for anything, 1 or 2 days a week, maybe?
He's for sale.
Yes, he's for sale. But we love him.
I'll try to say this, but it's we don't get to have world-class utilities and we win awards without world-class employees. We have a great team. It's solid, and they have been so supportive of me. And I know I'm going to miss them like family, but I'm not too far away. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
A round of applause for Dan Most.
Next, we have Mr. Hall. Is he in the back?
Yeah,
I saw him in the
he's
back. I thought I saw him back there. Come on up. Representative Hall, and the podium, and tell us about House Bill 361, if you would, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I want to first thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak on this important legislation. I want to start tonight, though, a little different. I want to first congratulate the Hamilton Westside Little League on their victory today. I was in Columbus today, but between meetings, I was trying to make sure I was keeping an eye on the game. I think it's so great what they're doing over Williamsport, and I think they play California next, so obviously rooting for them to go forward with that. So big accomplishment. You guys should be very proud of the many families and students. But today we're here to talk about House Bill 361. House Bill 361 was a bill that was brought to my office from just up the road here with an issue in St. Clair Township with a neighborhood called Cedar Grove Subdivision that deals with block crossings and railroads. We have since tried to work with both railroad companies, Norfolk Southern, CSX, to mitigate this problem, to make it easier on residents, not only in St. Clair Township, but residents all across Ohio. This issue is not specific to my district. That's why we have a joint sponsor who is a Democrat representative from Sharonville, Representative Miranda. This is a bipartisan bill to try and draw attention to an issue that affects all Ohioans. As we go around this great state and we're talking about this bill specifically, we are learning about some of the horrors that people go through on a daily basis with railroads and with block crossings. We're not here to fight the railroads. We're not here to make them, change what their everyday practices are. We're just trying to work with them in any capacity to help our constituents get from their house to work, get from their house to the school to drop their kids off or to pick their kids up. With this bill, we wanted to make sure that they knew we were serious about this issue. This issue is getting worse. It's not an issue, it's getting better. On the way here, I talked with the chairman of our Committee of Transportation and Public Safety. This is a bill that will actually get hearings. This is a bill that we are going to take seriously at the State House. And talking with one of your councilmen, this is an issue for you guys as well. And talking with my district, with the city of Monroe, the city of Trenton, and some of the townships, this is a very important issue. So I'm here tonight to say thank you that you guys are here in support of our bill. This is a bill that we know has an uphill battle with the railroad's history of success in the courts at the federal level. We understand that this will, ultimately probably end up in court. But we want to take this fight up because this is important to our constituents, and this is an important issue that doesn't just affect Republicans. It doesn't just affect Democrats. This affects everybody. And we are the youngest member of the Ohio General Assembly. So we plan on fighting this fight for as long as we can to make sure that our constituents are heard at the state level and to make sure that this issue is addressed and hopefully fixed into the future. So thank you so much for allowing me to come tonight and share a brief brief opinion on House Bill 361.
Questions? Representative, has this type of legislation passed in other states?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we've looked at. So we've looked at what is preemptive, what has worked, what hasn't worked. There's situation after situation in different states. There was a situation in Kentucky, there was a situation in Indiana that we've looked at. We wrote this bill with our policy team. We wrote this bill with our Legislative Service Commission to try and go around all the safeguards that they currently have in place at the federal level as far as statutes. So we're increasing the penalty for block crossings, but we're also requiring them to report everything to PUCO. And we feel as though that's not protected by federal statutes. We feel as though we have a very good shot with this bill as far as getting this bill passed and signed into law and drawing attention to a very serious problem that faces not only people in Southwest Ohio, but people in Northeast Ohio and people in Southwest or Southeast Ohio and Northeast Ohio. So we understand what we're up against. We understand that they have a very powerful voice. They have a very, very powerful seat at the table. But we want to make sure that we are doing what we can to represent our constituents at the state level.
Any questions for Representative Hall?
Hi, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for putting this in action, trying to. Have other municipalities been successful in trying to enforce this?
Yes and no, to answer your question. So right now, if a train is blocking a crossing up to a certain amount of time, you can call and make a report. I encourage people to call and make those reports and call and have those reports on record because it helps our case with evidence. What happens a lot of times is these cases will go to court. There's been cases, to the mayor's question previously, of other states, you'll win in state court. But when you get to the federal court, that's when the federal statutes will kind of take over, and that's when they will ultimately win. But our thing is, we want to make sure that we can do what we can with the position that we're in currently. Other municipalities have tried different things. A big issue right now is, the train length used to be around 8,500 feet. Now they're pushing 13,000 and 14,000 feet. And you can notice that I live in Madison Township, born and raised. Train links in the middle of the trains, you'll see another engine and you'll see a much longer train. So we understand that trains have to get their process and they have to do their job just like we have to do our job. We're not trying to make it difficult on them. We're just trying to work with them to solve this issue because municipalities are getting frustrated. In the city of Trenton, we have issue after issue with block crossings in the city of Trenton near Wayne Madison. So we're constantly trying to accept the feedback that we get positively and negatively. We understand this is going to be a fight. We understand that we're not going to be friends of the railroad, but that's okay. People sent us here to represent them, and this is an issue that's very important to the district, and that's why we're here.
Okay. And when you say call, where do they call?
Yeah, so the Cedar Grove subdivision example is one I will use because I'm a part of a Facebook group chat, and every time there's a block crossing, I'm made aware of a block crossing in that area. So what they do is they call the sheriff's office and make a report. And it helps because our sheriff of the county, his secretary lives in that subdivision, so she makes sure that all the reports are noted, the times are noted, how long it's blocked, and it's been really helpful. This issue came to me because of St. Clair Township, but this is like I said, a much larger scale issue. I can tell you story after story from a public service perspective from St. Clair Township where they've had instances where they've had emergency calls that they couldn't respond to because of the block crossing for one reason or another. I told you we've been working with the railroads. We've been working with the railroads since February on this. We've given them time. We've given them every opportunity to meet. We've given them every opportunity to explain their case. The problem's getting worse, though. Mm-hmm. And people are looking at us like, hey, you're not doing anything. And it's like, no, we're trying, but we're not getting anything done. So that's why we chose the legislative route. We have a number of co-sponsors from the Committee of Transportation and Public Safety to show them that we are serious. And this is not, like I said, this is not a Republican push. This is not a Democrat push. This is a joint push between both parties at the State House to address this issue. Again, I can tell you story after story from members that have dealt with block crossings in regards to public service, trying to get to a call to help people.
Just out of curiosity, when you have these conversations with them, do they tell you why they stopped the trains? I mean, what would be the reasons to stop a 13, however long you said it was, train?
Yeah. If we had all night, I would tell you every reason they've given me. There's not one specific reason.
Okay.
They talk about mitigation issues. They talk about the Laughlin interchange. They talk about all these different things, but the reality is it's still happening. It's happening worse. So there's not one specific answer to answer your question. They will tell you there's a multitude of things. There was an Enquirer article that came out about probably 2 months ago or a month ago, and they put a quote in the article. In the article, they basically said, well, the train was there first. That's right. The trains were here first in this situation in St. Clair Township, but there's also a huge subdivision that is there now. And now we have to work together to figure out this issue, to move forward together. So we're willing to meet and talk with both railroads. We have done that for months. Doing this legislation was not trying to pick a fight. It was just simply just trying to let them know that we are serious about addressing this problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So on agenda item 35 is a resolution. We vote on it tonight for your House bill, number 361.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, members of council, for allowing me to come tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. We go to, I think, number 5, which is the City of Hamilton 2020 audit. Kerry Rowe and Dave Jones.
Good evening, members of council. Tonight, we're fortunate to have Mr. Kerry Rowe from Clark Schaefer Hackett, our independent audit firm, and he's going to go over the 2020 audit and answer any questions you all may have.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to come again this year and give you a brief summary of the audit. I will keep it brief. So I think most of you are aware that our primary reason here each year is to perform an audit of the financial statements of the city. And I'm pleased to say that this year during our audit, our opinion of the financials was that they are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in all material respects. That's exactly what you would hope for from an opinion standpoint. That's what we call an unmodified opinion. The city has submitted its comprehensive annual financial report to the Government Finance Officers Association for their award in excellence in reporting. We believe it meets all the criteria, and again, the city will receive that award again for 2020's audit. Part of our audit, though, we also test compliance. It's not just a financial statement audit, and so we do issue 2 separate reports in addition to that opinion on the financial statements. The first one relates to government auditing standards. We're required to evaluate the city's internal controls over financial reporting. And we're also required to test your compliance with laws and regulations that could have a direct and material effect on your financial statements. Pleased to say we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control that we needed to report, nor did we find any material instances of non-compliance that needed to be reported as well. So that report was the standard or boilerplate. And then finally, as you're all aware, the city participates in a number of federal programs. One of the strings attached to federal dollars is a compliance audit. During 2020, the city received about $4 million of coronavirus relief funding. It was about half of the federal funding received in 2020. So that was the program that we ended up auditing as part of our audit. Again, the federal government asks us to evaluate the internal controls you've put in place, and they ask us to express an opinion as to whether or not we believe you've complied materially with their laws and regulations. And we believe you did materially comply with those laws and regulations. So again, that report was the boilerplate or standard. So overall, when you think about reporting, certainly couldn't get a better audit report than that. It was excellent. I also want a couple other points I'd like to make. We had no disagreements with management, and our professional standards really define those as matters such as accounting, auditing, or reporting issues. And then also want to let you know that we received excellent cooperation from everyone here at the city management staff. Certainly Finance Director Jones and his staff bear the brunt and shoulder the load of the audit, but we do spend quite a bit of time in the various city departments as well. We received excellent cooperation during the audit as well. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Great. Thank you for the report
Yeah.
and the contents of the report, too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next, we have cape sealing of city streets and east-west traffic alternatives. And we got Pat Yangling and Rich Engel. Are you the...
He's doing this one.
He's doing the entire thing? Okay. Okay. You're east-west guy. Okay.
Appreciate the time to speak. Wanted to bring City Council up to speed on this year's resurfacing program. We're resurrecting a process that it's been about 10 years since we've done it, called cape sealing. What is cape sealing? Cape sealing is a pavement treatment, a little different than from our conventional system. It incorporates two different layers. One's a chip seal layer, and then we cover it with a microsurface. Cape seal is an economic solution that addresses fair to moderate streets that you do before they start degrading too far along, while providing a smooth, dense surface, good skid resistance, and extensive service life.
The remote's in your...
Oh, sorry. Which button?
Should be these arrows right here. That way you can control it.
All right. So when should cape seal be used? Streets that typically have a range of PCI, which is a rating from 0 to 100, around 55 to 70, which we classify as a good to fair condition. Most streets that you'll see in this condition are just a lot of cracking, some small little base failures, but nothing that we would feel would incorporate having to go very deep on the surface. The cape seal extends the life of the existing pavement before the cost of repairs start getting in. Repairs for streets is not a linear cost with age. It's a very steep decline. Once you get over that 55 range, it's a very exponential decline. It gets very rapid very quickly. So part of the cape seal is to get it before it starts going into that rapid decline. Streets we'll be doing this year, there's 6 different streets. Cleveland Avenue, section of Cleveland Avenue from Schultz to Tabor Lane. The cul-de-sacs Jeremy, Joshua, and Callan, Tabor Lane, and Thal Drive. The benefits to the cape sealing is extends the pavement life. Before the existing pavement gets too far along, we can use that structure and that life that still exists in that pavement before it's gone. And the chip sealing process seals up that pavement and prevents the water intrusion. Water is the #1 killer of pavement, so sealing that up tight will extend the life of that pavement. It has a similar appearance to conventional asphalt. The big difference between a microsurface and a conventional asphalt is microsurface uses a sharp stone. Regular asphalt uses more of a round wash stone. So it's a little rougher initially. Typically after the first season of plowing and traffic on it, has more of a smoother polished finish. Cape sealing will allow us to do a lot more miles to be treated with cape sealing. They say it's about 40 to 50% the cost of a traditional asphalt resurfacing project. We can do a lot more streets with the money that we have with our current funding. We will incorporate base fill repairs, especially in the areas of the neighborhoods we're doing this year. We'll be eliminating, repairing all the transverse cracking that you can feel as you drive along. So by doing that along with the cape sealing process, will greatly extend the life of the streets. So I have a little bit of a video that show you the process and how efficient it is. It saves us done a lot quicker. And see the video here. So the first process you're seeing here is this is a microsurface process going on right here. You can see it's filed in, sprayed down. It's got a hopper, drops the material on, screeds it down. Very quick. People can drive on it within minutes after the application is done. This is a surface a couple weeks after it's been done. Like I said they'll be able to do the whole subdivision. Will take approximately 4 to 5 working days to do 2 processes of the microsurface. Open up to any questions you might have on it.
The key is getting to those streets before they get so bad that you can't do this and you have to do a more expensive treatment.
When I ran the simple numbers through it from our conventional 3 off, 3 on our streets compared to this, it was about 35 to 40% cheaper. So what it costs us about $350,000 to resurface those streets. It's going to come out to be about $115,000 to do this treatment.
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
I had a question. So I know you said the PCI was 55 to 70, but in years, so since that road had been blacktopped, when might you do this? 3 years later, 5 years later?
There's no linear timeline. Typically, you like to try to address streets within 15 years to 20 years after they've been originally put down, with some minor, crack sealing and other treatments. But really, a lot that has to do with the degradation of the streets is how it was originally constructed and the base underneath it. I always tell people Hamilton's 2 different towns when it comes to materials underneath. We got very granular subgrade in the east side of Hamilton and very clay soils on the other side of Hamilton. So roads in the water in the granular streets penetrates and gets away from the roads. In the wet clays, it stays there longer and it causes more degradation. So it's a different aging, but typically you like to try to get on these streets within about the first 15, 20 years.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful because I've had people say to me, they're paving the street, 2 blocks from me and it didn't even have potholes.
Yeah.
So it's probably not it's not paving as we are doing in a lot of the street levy streets.
Right.
So that's helpful to explain that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks. East-west traffic alternatives?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens of Hamilton. I would like to add on what Pat said. We're following many of our water main projects with new street concrete repair and resurfacing projects as well to get everything done as quickly as possible for those neighborhoods because it is an inconvenience to have multiple construction over multiple years. So we're trying to minimize that inconvenience as much as possible. So earlier this year, the city manager asked us to look at east-west connectivity in relation to and also in connection with the North Hamilton Crossing project. I know we've started down that path on North Hamilton Crossing, but city manager was interested in whether there was other options, other alternatives we would be able to construct in not only a shorter time frame, but also at less cost. So we had the consultant that's doing the North Hamilton Crossing project take a look at some of these options. And we asked them to do the evaluation and develop some conceptual routes, primarily to reduce traffic congestion on High Street. So this will be a lot of information tonight, and I'm going to go through it as quickly and briefly as possible. But I would like to, I'll be sharing a PDF of the presentation in the morning to all of council. And after you read it, and if there's additional questions, we can always come back later and have a further discussion about these alternatives. But I think it at least gives a good idea of where we can identify some of these projects, but also recognize that the cost and the time frame would parallel what we're looking at for the North Hamilton Crossing. So the alternatives considered include the from Black Street to Joe Nuxall Boulevard with an at-grade rail crossing, reopening the Vine Street at-grade rail crossing, a new underpass at Heaton Street, extend Grand Boulevard west to Neyland Boulevard, a direct connection of Heaton Street with Erie Boulevard using Elm Street, and then lastly, extending Pershing Avenue east to Erie Boulevard with a grade-separated rail crossing on the west CSX line and also MLK Junior Boulevard. So as a result of the evaluation, the consultant prepared a matrix which evaluated each of these additional east-west connectivities alternatives with travel time directly related to High Street, the railroad crossing impact, right-of-way impacts, and multimodal transportation impacts. For the travel time, if it's red, that means the travel time savings is less than 20 seconds. Yellow is between 20 seconds and 40 seconds, and green is greater than 40 seconds. So you can see none of those actually accomplish what we were hoping for with increasing or decreasing travel time greater than 40 seconds. The railroad crossing impact, green would create a new grade separated crossing or eliminates an existing at-grade crossing. Yellow is no railroad impacts, and red requires a new at-grade crossing. So we do have two that would accomplish the green, but two have red with new at-grade crossings, and two were yellow with no impact. The third is the right-of-way impacts. Green would indicate minor property impacts. Yellow is moderate property impacts, and red is significant property impacts. And some of those did accomplish what we were hoping for with the minor property impacts. And lastly, the multimodal transportation impacts. Green increased the multimodal and neighborhood connectivity. Yellow is a neutral impact to connectivity and multimodal impacts. And red is an adversely impact. Now with that information, I'm going to go into each of the alternatives directly. Starting with the Black Street to Joe Nuxall Boulevard, and this would be a conceptual, and these are all conceptual, a conceptual layout between Black Street directly over to Joe Nuxall Boulevard. And some of the potential benefits would be it would be a direct access to Black Street Bridge. Although remember, Black Street Bridge is on the latter end of its useful life with maybe possibly another 20 years available, so we have to keep that in mind as well. Multimodal connectivity. Some of the potential challenges would be a new at-grade crossing, and it would be at a skewed angle. And as CSX has noted that they would require closure of 3 existing at-grade crossings for each new at-grade crossing. I did have a conversation with the local CSX engineer who is the project manager for public projects, and she would not commit to anything less than 3, but I would presume that we could probably negotiate 2. I don't know that we could get it down to 1 for 1. The time frame to perform this project would be a medium 2 to 6 year time frame, and the project cost is $6.8 million. And again, this is project cost. We've tried to estimate not only the construction cost, but also all of the accessory engineering, geotechnical, and property acquisition and other costs associated with these projects. Next one would be the Vine Street, reopening up the Vine Street Railroad crossing. This would just simply reestablish an existing at-grade crossing and would also provide multimodal connectivity to the neighborhoods. Again, with a new crossing, since it's been closed in the past, we would require the closure of 3 existing at-grade crossings, would have substantial impact to adjacent commercial property. Time frame would also be medium 2 to 6 years. And then the project cost is estimated at $3.8 million. So even such a short section of new connection is still very expensive. Next one is the Heaton Street Underpass. Potential benefits would be replacing an at-grade crossing, provide economic development, multimodal connectivity. The property acquisition involved with this one, substantial impact to adjacent commercial properties. It would require relocation of utilities because there are utilities in that corridor on this street, and then also future maintenance costs having an underpass. Time frame would be a long time frame, greater than 6 years, and the project cost is estimated at $24 million. Next one is the Grand Boulevard extension. This would require no acquisition of buildings, would provide multimodal connectivity from neighborhoods to the Great Miami River Recreational Trail. Potential challenges, there is an abandoned landfill that it would need to cross, so that would add cost to the project, and relocation of electric transmission towers. Time frame would be medium, 2 to 6 years, with a project cost of approximately $7 million. Next one is the Heaton Street to Erie Boulevard via Elm Street. The potential benefit would be better access to Erie Boulevard from Heaton Street. It would also probably, depending on the final route selection with the North Hamilton crossing, would be beneficial to that project as well. It would require property acquisition as well as coordination with the fire department. Time frame for this would be medium, also 2 to 6 years, with an estimated project cost of $2.7 million. This is an interesting one. It's the Pershing Avenue extension, where we would connect into Pershing Avenue and extend it all the way to Erie Boulevard, Route 4. It would benefit would have a new grade separator crossing of the CSX railroad tracks along Martin Luther King Boulevard, as well as a bridge over Martin Luther King Boulevard. It would provide a direct connection between Columbia Bridge and Erie Boulevard. And we would utilize the existing at-grade crossing of the Norfolk Southern tracks at Maple Avenue. Potential challenges would obviously be property acquisitions, and then there would also not be a connection between Pershing Avenue and the Martin Luther King Boulevard. This would be a long time frame associated with this project, with an estimated cost of $38 million. So in summary of the alternatives, we have alternatives that offer varying levels of relief to traffic congestion on High Street. There are railroad crossings, both at grade and grade separated crossings. Property impacts range from minor to significant. The multimodal impacts differ. Timeframes range from 2 years to greater than 6 years. And the project costs vary greatly, as I've mentioned. So based on this information, our recommendation is to continue supporting the North Hamilton Crossing project. The travel times for this North Hamilton Crossing project are estimated to be much higher. And in addition, we're authorizing the consultant to prepare a computer software model of our transportation network, primarily on the north side of Hamilton at the moment, associated with the North Hamilton Crossing project. And we will use that to better estimate what travel time improvements are going to happen as a result of projects. And this model can then be expanded as we have more funds available, that we can do this additional modeling throughout the rest of the city. The North Hamilton Crossing will result with a new bridge over the river and grade separated crossing of CSX tracks. We realize that the property and neighborhood impacts are significant. Multimodal connectivity would be greater than the ones I've just mentioned. Project costs are much significant. Time frame is greater than 6 years, although we're focusing on having it completed within 10. The preliminary engineering is underway, and we are pursuing grant funds every time we have any available. We do have a commitment of $2 million from the ODOT track funding. We are still waiting on the $1 million earmark funding and also on the $950,000 U.S. Department of Transportation RAISE grant application. So from our perspective, the good news is that the grant funding for engineering has been, we've got some, we're probably going to get more. And the better news is that these agencies will then provide grant funding when we apply for construction dollars as well. I think once they invest in the engineering piece, they'll be more willing to invest in the construction piece as well. So again, I realize this is a lot of information for you to absorb tonight. I'd be happy to come back again and have further conversation about this. I will provide the presentation in PDF format in the morning so you can look at it in more detail and think about your questions and comments. Is there anything I can answer at the moment?
Not hear anybody on council have any kind of questions for Rich? We all look forward to what you're going to send to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I know this is kind of out of line, but do you think when presentations like this are made, we could get the PDF ahead of time so we can make notes on that? Not just to you, but for everyone that does it. And we can make notes on that while we're listening to you talk.
That'd be fine, but since I just finished this one at noon today, it might have been a little more challenging.
Okay, then.
Number 7, pedestrian crossing improvements at High Main Park Avenue. Senior Civil Engineer Alan Messer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you for sitting through 3 presentations in a row by engineers. I'm sure that's the highlight of your night. But the project I'm here to talk about is the pedestrian crossing at Park Avenue ramp. And this project was identified on the active transportation plan that the city of Hamilton had completed last year. And earlier this year, Valerie Greenham asked what would it involve and what would it cost. And so here's what we're talking about. It's a little difficult to see there, but today if you're crossing the High Main Bridge on the north side, if you're coming, say, from Municipal Brew Works or River's Edge and headed towards, roll on in there, point B on the map. If you want to get across there, if you're in a wheelchair, you have to go the orange route, which is around and under the High Main Bridge, across the Ross Avenue ramp, and then up to B Street, and then across Main Street, and then eventually across B Street. If you're on foot, you can go, and that's about a 1/4 mile in length, as opposed to a couple hundred feet if you were to extend straight there. If you were to go the purple route, that's still close to a 1/4 mile. You would go up to the north, across the Park Avenue ramp there at B Street, and then come back down to the high main bridge and then across B Street. So what we're trying to do is make this more convenient for pedestrians. And here's kind of a view of what we're looking at there in the Park Avenue ramp. There's limited visibility today. There's no curb ramps. That's the reason for having to make such a circuitous route in the wheelchair. There's no sidewalk between Park Avenue and the ramp in North B Street. And you kind of see the gravel there in the center of the screen. That gravel was put down because so many people were already making this trek, even though it's not allowed, that they had to put gravel down to basically cover up the goat path that was there. Pedestrian crossings are not permitted. It's a little difficult to see, but there is a no crossing sign there at the ramp, and that's frequently disregarded. In fact, when I went to take this picture last week, somebody had just finished crossing right before I got there and took the photo. I actually had to wait and take the photo after they did it so as not to catch them in the act. This is what the improvement would look like. So we'd add a crosswalk with ramps at the Park Avenue ramp near bullet number 1 there. A sidewalk connection. So we'd have to bump the curb out on that island there at Park Avenue ramp and Main Street. And then we would add a hawk signal. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. The cost with all that would be roughly between $100,000 and $125,000. So the reason for the hawk signal at this particular location is it does have high visibility. It's very prominent. Nice thing is that the pedestrian can stop traffic. It's not like you're flashing yellow where it's just a warning to the motorist. And it can be synced with the signal that's already there at North B Street at the existing ramp. So what you would do would be to time it essentially where if a person pushed the button, it wouldn't automatically stop. It would wait until that light went red and wait until cars stacked up to a certain point, and then this would go red. The difference in this and what most people are accustomed to, so when it's not in operation, it's blank. And when somebody pushes it, the yellow light flashes. So again, we're getting that visibility, but it's something people aren't accustomed to. Then the yellow light briefly goes solid yellow, then it goes to a solid red, the two lights across the top there in the T section. Then, after a shorter period of time than would normally be a red light, it goes to a flashing red, and that means that the motorist can then proceed if that pedestrian has cleared the intersection. So it's meant to kind of get that balance between vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. Then once it's done, it goes blank again. You can kind of see there in the lower left what the signage would look like. And so part of this is getting communication out there because we are in early September looking to activate one of these on Eaton Avenue, there by Flubs where the Beltline dead ends into Eaton Avenue. And then a second one late this year, early next year, will be at the sports complex, between the sports complex and the convention center on North B Street. So I expect with any change, there's going to be people that are naysayers and, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. There's going to be a little confusion with, you can go on that flashing red, even with the signage there. I know it's a lot for people to look around and find that signage. So expect that early on. This will be the first one, this one on Eaton Avenue, I think will be the first one in Butler County. There's a lot up in Columbus. I was on vacation this summer. There's a ton of them, like in Sarasota, Florida, and Austin, Texas. I talked to Madeira, who had the first one here in Southwest Ohio. Theirs has been in 7 or 8 years. They were very thrilled with it. They kind of tried everything else and then went to this, just for a better solution, and were pleased that they did. With that, so what we're asking today is for consideration of this for next year's budget. It's something that I'd recommend, but we've got a lot of needs in the city, and I realize there's not enough money to cover all those needs, so you get the pleasure of sorting out what the priority should be. Are there any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
is this what's going in at Baden, at that crossing? Is there going to be lights there?
There's lights there, but it's not one of these. It's kind of more your standard. I think I'm not.
Rotating rapid flash beacon.
Yeah, it would be similar to one on Cleveland Avenue there at the bike trail, if you've seen that, where you push it. So it is an activated thing, but it doesn't stop traffic like this one.
Okay, it just cautions you, someone could be walking.
Correct.
there.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, why wouldn't we put one of these at a crosswalk like that? I'm not saying we have to there. Why would you put one there that's different than the others?
They're kind of more suited for, I'll say, more of an urban type situation. So like on Cleveland, it's wide open. You don't have a lot of signage. You don't have a lot of other distractions. Whereas on Eaton Avenue, you do. On B Street, you obviously do, and certainly on the Park Avenue ramp.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Please. Alan, do you have any idea of the interval for crossing? If it's a 15-second interval, that it would give time for a family of 4 to be able to cross, because we anticipate that there would be families walking or groups of people walking rather than a single pedestrian. You may have singles every once in a while, but because of what we believe with Spooky Nook coming in and the visitors, what have you, any idea of what the interval would be, that if it goes back to through traffic, is it going to wait 3 minutes to be reset again, or could it be reset in 60 seconds? Any thoughts on that?
It'll be closer to the 60 seconds to 2 minutes, because it will be dependent on that light at the North B Street Park Avenue signal. So it as soon as that one goes red, then it can go again. So you can push it immediately, and it's just kind of holding that request until that signal's gone red and the traffic's queued up to it. And as far as getting across the street, it's based on the length of the crossing. It's typically 3 to 3.5 seconds per foot. So this one might be the solid red might be a little shorter, but the total red, solid red and flashing red could be longer. And we have that flexibility of adjusting that. So traffic operations would go through, and if there was a need to make it longer, they could.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think it's a good project to keep looking at. I mean, it's great. Looking for, keep looking at it. I think you got council who's appreciative of the concept and often moving forward.
Okay. Something to consider.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think 7:30 on the agenda is when Wolf was going to call up. Is that right, Mr. Engel? Will that take very long to set that up, Daniel?
No, I can do that right now.
Okay, we are going to use this time wisely and have the Schuler-Benninghofen project presentation at this time by our city manager, Joshua Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. We were planning on having the development agreement and the purchase agreement for the Schuler-Benninghofen Mill project on the council agenda this evening for a first reading. There's been a lot of back and forth between our legal counsel and their legal counsel, and by the time we got a finished product, I did not want to rush it in front of council. So just to reiterate, it was in front of you in July on a caucus report. We were hoping to have the first reading tonight. You have copies of the proposed development agreement in front of you. I wanted to provide the terms of that agreement, and also Kathy Evans with Milliken and Fitton is with us this evening in case you have any specific legal questions relative to that agreement. So to recap, what the agreement says is the city will buy the Schuler-Benninghofen Mill for $650,000. The developers will have a due diligence period to inspect the property that will take them into the spring of 2022. Our anticipation is that they will close at that time on the property and they will physically own the property in the spring of 2022. Also, the development agreement contemplates that by December 1st of 2021, they have to begin the process of getting the building on the National Historic Register, which is important because they are not eligible to apply for federal or state historic tax credits until the property is on the historic register at the federal level. Even now they are going to own the property, which they have to do to be the applicant for the tax credits. They have asked the city during their phase of getting the tax credits to continue to contribute towards some of the bills. I want to make sure that this is very clear to City Council. So the city buys the property for $650,000. We are going to be responsible for the fire and casualty insurance during the time that they're attempting to get the historic tax credits. We're also going to be responsible for paying any part of the utilities that may be active. And finally, we're also going to be responsible to contributing $500 a month or $6,000 annually towards the ongoing maintenance of the facility. So if you think about things like mowing grass, plowing snow, there's a person that's been associated with the building for almost 30 years that has agreed to stay on for what I consider a relatively nominal amount of money. And if a window gets broken, if something gets broken into, he will help secure that property. If the developer is successful in getting the historic tax credits, then that would trigger the next phase of the project where they would actually start construction. And at the time of getting a building permit, the city would provide the developer a one-time cash incentive of $695,000. So to recap, we have $650,000 to buy the property. We're going to have some ongoing operating costs. If they proceed with the project, they get a one-time grant of $695,000. And also, they're going to be applying for what is relatively new in Ohio, which is a transformational mixed-use development credit. And they're going for $1.5 million. If they get a portion or none of that money, then the city would be responsible to close that gap of $1.5 million. So let's say that they receive a $600,000 TMUD credit, then the city would have to backfill $900,000. So what are we going to get in exchange for this investment? Pursuant to the development agreement, they have to invest a minimum of $20 million into the project. They have to create 100 market rate apartment units. They have to construct a minimum of 10,000 square feet of commercial/retail space. They have to provide a minimum of 50 indoor parking spaces and additional parking on the exterior. And they have to have the project done in a timely fashion. So it's an investment by the city, there is no doubt, but what it truly is an investment into Lindenwold, especially into the Lindenwold Historic District. And in having conversations with Miami University Hamilton, they think this will be a catalytic project for the Hamilton campus also. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Kathy Evans, who's with us tonight, Kathy, you may want to go to the podium, can also address any legal questions that you may have.
At this point in time, does council have any questions about the agreement that was just described by the city manager?
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The only question I have is probably, again, to Dave Jones, is what, again, was the estimated of the holding cost for the utilities for the month, for each month?
95 to 100 a month.
A month. Well, I mean, how much was it for the year?
Annually, we were estimating $95,000 to $100,000. That's annually.
Annually, okay.
Monthly, they vary quite a bit in the winter.
Okay,
You've got
but
to find
we're looking
it.
at about 95 to 100,000 a year.
Correct.
So if we have to hold for 2 years, we're at 200,000 approximately. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this particular time? For legal or for any of the city professionals?
I'll just, I realize that council has a planning session on how to use ARPA funds coming up in the next week or so. As a reminder, on the staff recommendation, we had money set aside within those ARPA funds. Obviously, that's council's decision on how to utilize those, but we felt that was one of the paths forward, if you will, if you decided that this project was, or had merit to it.
So we're talking about this possibly as soon as next Wednesday night.
Yes, sir. You will see, I mean, we plan on, as long as the attorneys have everything buttoned up by September 8th, this will be on the council agenda for action. So again, it's already been on the caucus agenda in July. We were going to try to have the first reading tonight, but because of timing, we just didn't feel like we should squeeze it on the agenda without giving council appropriate time to review the development agreement. So it's our request of council then to put this on September 8th for both readings.
Mr. Mayor? Please. Joshua, if you would just remind everyone the development company and how many other developments they've had that are similar to what they're proposing for Schiller-Benninghofen.
Yes, I think we're very fortunate in this case that Bloomfield Sean, that's based out of Cincinnati, has over 30 years experience doing adaptive reuse projects. They have been 100% successful in obtaining historic tax credits during that time frame. And just for reference, several projects that people can look up in the general area. They did the Peters Cartridge Factory adaptive reuse, which is over by Kings Island. That was their most recent project. Also, they did the American Can building in north side of Cincinnati. Both of these projects have been done probably in the last 10 years or so. Peters Cartridge Factory literally just opened in the last 18 months or so. But those two are very local and can show you what they've been able to do with abandoned facilities that need a lot of investment.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this particular time? Take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have the moving company on Zoom right now. I should be able to, if they would test their audio, they should be able to come through on our feed. Rich, do you want to do your presentation while we're at it as well? See, Devin, Mike, could you please try to give some audio out to us, see if we can pick you up.
Yeah, this is Mike Brohunt here with Wolf House Movers.
Yeah, this is Devin Hurt with Wolf House Movers.
So to recap what was presented at the last council meeting, the council with two options. One, to raise both structures beginning at the bottom of the wall upwards. And we did receive the bids. Wolf House and Building Movers were the apparent low bidder with $656,000 as their low bid. And Edwards Moving and Rigging proposed a bid of $1,750,000. The second option was the raising both structures beginning at essentially ground level with putting the beams through the walls of the structure and lifting from there. Wolf House and Building Movers bid $370,000 and Edwards Moving and Rigging was $1,387,500. Now, all of the bids included a $10,000 contingency item that I put in there in case there were other issues that we needed to address with the movers during this process. Joshua met with and had him take a look at the building. I don't know that he looked at it in great detail, but he at least made some initial comments that Joshua shared in an email, and I just summarized them here in this slide. Does not believe that there are any structural issues related with moving either CSX building. Recommends using the bottom 3 to 4 feet to lift the structures and reuse the same brick to rebuild. Many of the lower bricks are not original, as he noted, and also historic tax credit should still be available even if the building gets moved and the lower part of the buildings are penetrated to move them. With that, I think we'd open it up to questions to Wolf House and Building Movers. I know council was interested in hearing what they had to say about their impressions of the building.
Anybody on council want to do the first question?
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
I do have a question on the 3 to 4 feet to lift the structure, and the when they do that, you're going to remove 3 to 4 feet all the way across both buildings, the whole underneath of that, right? Because it has to be detached from that foundation, correct?
That is correct, yes. It'll be all the way around. On the ends, it's generally a little bit different carry line than around the sides, but usually within a foot of each other. And all of that should stay within the 3 to 4 feet.
And those bricks can be saved, pretty much of them can be saved to rebuild it?
Most of them usually can. At the very least, you'll be able to get enough to face the outside. Maybe you could use newer brick for the interior. But when we go to put holes in, we are either using a cutoff saw to cut through, or we're using a jackhammer to punch holes through the wall. So there will definitely be some bricks that are not salvageable, but the majority of them should be.
Perfect. And you too, you don't feel that there's any structural problems lifting that building? I mean, obviously by your pamphlet, you've done a bunch of them, so it's a pretty neat pamphlet we have here in front of us, but you feel the structure is very good on this?
Yeah, I don't see any issues. I was out there myself several years ago, and Andrew
This meeting is being recorded.
and Devin. Andrew and Devin were both out there more recently, and we've not seen anything that's anywhere as close to some of them that we've moved.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
So my question is, if you move the building 3 or 4 feet up, do you have to have the foundation built under it? How does this work? How do you don't sit it on the ground absent those brick, correct? Does that make sense?
That's correct. So essentially we're separating the building from the lower walls at about 3 to 4 feet. And then at the new site, there will be footers already installed, ready for us to move the building in place. Once we move the building in place, we'll set it exactly at the permanent elevation and position, and then we will hold it there for a period of time while the masons come in and build the bottom part of the wall back up to it. And they'll actually grout that tight, so when we come back to remove our equipment, the new part of the wall that's been built in will already be sufficient to hold it while we remove our steel. And then there will be pockets all around that they'll have to fill in after that. But there will be a new foundation before we remove our equipment.
So your equipment could sit there for several weeks?
Yes, I think we have a specific period of time in the proposal. I would have to look at that. I don't remember off the top of my head how many days we had included in that. Do you, Devin?
I don't off the top of my head either.
But we had a specific amount of time figured into that, and it should be more than enough to get the foundation built up under it.
And is that an additional cost to do it
If
that
it
way?
go-
Is that where the difference comes in? I'm sorry.
If it goes beyond the specific amount of days, then yes, there's an additional cost. But the period of time that it's setting on steel and the return at a later date to remove our equipment is all included in the proposal cost.
Okay, we don't have an itemized, so that's why I was asking that question. I'm trying
Sure.
to figure out the cost differential here. It's 300,000 difference from one to the other.
Well, that difference has to do with whether we lift the building from 3 to 4 feet above the floor or we lift it at ground level. So there's a significant more amount of work involved in lifting it at ground level because we have to excavate down below the floor level to get all of our steel in below that carry line. So that'd be a lot more excavation, both of the interior and of the exterior. Plus, then with the tracks running so close to the building, we would not be able to get full length beams in from side to side. So we would have to use split beams, which is possible, but again, takes more work, more time. So the difference in cost has to do with how much of the lower walls we are moving.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Sir, I noticed in your material booklet, you got a section for depots, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 7 that your company has moved in the past. Is that correct?
Wow, those are the most visually pleasing ones. We moved quite a few more than that.
Okay. I see in the material next to the particular building photograph, some are, I guess, 4 brick thick, some are 3 brick thick. I believe this building's probably at least 3 brick thick. Is that accurate?
I believe it is triple brick, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed the one...
And there's some of them that we move are also frame with a brick veneer or with stone veneer, or some of them have even been solid stone.
I noticed there's one from Sturgis, Michigan.
Yeah, so that was a brick building, and then a portion of it had a limestone veneer around the bottom.
I think that's on your website too, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, sir? That particular one?
Yes.
That's all that I have right now. Other questions by council?
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
First, thank you for joining us tonight. We all appreciate you being here. This project is going to be under very watchful eyes, so thank you for sharing this with us.
Sure.
And I know this may not be fair to ask you this question, but it's rumbling in my head, so somebody's going to hear it. From what I understand, you guys often bid against Edwards Moving. Can you give us some idea? Because I know that you heard what their bid is. For there to be $1 million difference in bids, can you enlighten us why there is so much difference in that? Is it the work that's being done, or what would cause it to be 1.7 or 1.3 million to move it by someone else?
Well, I think probably the key difference there is that their main work is not structural moving. They used to do structural moving in the past, many decades ago, but that's not what they generally do now. They're more into heavy haul over the road type of thing.
Okay.
Whereas structural moving is what we do every day. I've only bid against them one other time in the past that I can remember. So I would guess that has something to do with it.
Probably getting other equipment and things that you guys have on hand that they would have to.
Pardon?
Probably to get equipment that you guys will already have on hand if they don't do this as often. What's the oldest building you've ever moved? What year was it?
It was in the late 1600s. We moved a little log cabin in Pennsylvania. It was from the late 1600s.
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Rich, did you want to add anything based on our questions or anything that you want to add at this point in time?
No, sir.
If there's any other questions, can we submit them to you, sir, if we have questions after the meeting?
Absolutely. Yes. I believe Rich Engel has my email address, as well as my phone number, and he has Devin's information as well. So either one of us should be able to answer any questions you have from here on out.
Okay, we have one more question.
I do have one more question. Would it be your preference in securing the stability of the building to excavate from underneath, or just doing it the 3 feet?
It would be our preference to lift it above the floor, the cheaper option. It's just a tremendous more amount of work and quite a bit of hassle and having to work with the railroad tracks if we're working under them versus being able to have flaggers out there and swing steel out over the tracks to push them in place in the building. So it will be much easier for us, hence the cheaper price, if we can lift it from the 3 to 4 feet above the floor.
But when it is set down on this platform, either way, it's going to be solid when it sits down?
Yes, our steel framework provides that lateral bracing from side to side. There's enough weight of the building that it will set real nice on our steel system. And what we engineer our steel system to not flex more than a certain amount when it's holding up a building. So you're not going to see one corner or another sinking down or flexing. And so therefore everything holds real stable and steady both during the lift and during the move. And we have other systems in place as well to make sure that it stays on a level plane.
Okay.
Not necessarily level, but that it stays on the same plane. No corners are racking.
So I don't know if this question goes to you or maybe to Rich. I know at one time we talked about taking that center section out that attaches it. So will they be taking that out and moving it all at one piece, or will they be moving them in 2 pieces? Am I making sense?
Yes, it will be a 2-building move. Each one will be moved independently of the other.
Okay.
And that center section will have to be removed by another contractor before they arrive to do so.
Okay. And then will those materials be saved? Is it going to be reconstructed like it is? I guess that's a question I can ask you later.
Yeah, I don't know that we've made a final decision on that.
All right, thank you.
I think there is and I haven't talked to this particular mover yet about what kind of a gap will remain between the 2 structures.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, sir.
Mr. Mayor, one more.
Yes, please.
This is actually probably for Rich, but all the leftover foundation and everything, that's not our expense to clean up, correct? It goes, CSX has to worry about that. The hole in the ground in the foundation that when the building's gone?
We have not had that direct conversation with CSX yet. But we are moving the buildings as requested, and we'll have to let them know that they'll be responsible for dealing with the aftermath.
I'm okay with that. Okay, so that'd be good. All right. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Yep, you're welcome.
Rich, could you, I'd like to have a copy of that if I could. Would you put on the screen up there? And if all council wants one?
Yes, please.
Oh, I would too. But are we going to be talking about this again later in the agenda?
There's a vote tonight, 28, 29, or it's somewhere in those numbers. It's
Right.
not, actually it's 39,
So save any further discussion for that.
38, 39.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll get the audience of citizens. Individuals who wish to speak may speak during this part of the agenda or may speak at the time when it is in front of us for a vote on council floor. All individuals are required to sign in the book. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 names of people who are speaking. Each speaker is allowed up to 5 minutes. The first person we have is Jim Loneman.
Good evening, Councilman and Mayor.
Good evening.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for getting that, being by October, getting that old railroad track on East Street, which can be removed, which is good. And also the sewer lids from St. Bell on High Street, we can fix them in the next couple weeks or two, which is good. Also, I have on what's the street is there? I think it's Finley or not Finley Street. The street goes down from right to the bridge. Right near.
Which bridge?
The bridge goes
Columbia Road?
Columbia Road, yeah, Columbia Road, yeah. Yeah, okay. The street goes down on the hill from on the east side, west side. Okay,
New London Road?
Yeah, there's some of these big, about 3 or 4, about 2 or 3 patches, or about 4 feet square, are starting to sink down. You know, I mean, the rest, there's about 3 of them that are still good shape though, you know. And, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, just nothing really major, you know, I just want to say that.
Well, we did respond to your comments or request at the last meeting. I believe you've got responded back about what you brought up. So thank you for notifying about those issues. It looked like you've got our city professionals looking at the issues that you raised at the last meeting.
Well, thank you. You did a great job for fixing it up.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I've got Mark. Good evening, Mark. You'll give us your name and your address there, please?
Mark Kaler, 2247 Mossy Grove, obviously Hamilton. Okay. First thing I'd like to do is thank council for all the work and everybody else in the city that you've done concerning Main Street. We're back. We're back. Thank you very much. And also still for a strong police department. Okay. As you talked about all the different roads and improvements that you're wanting to do, it looked like one of the road improvements was going to go through the old Beckett paper mill. I don't know if that's right or not, but is there anything that can be done about that? Have them continue cleaning it up, tearing it down? It's been about 5 years.
Okay. Let's just make a list. If you got a list of things, more than one?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We're going to write down Beckett first, and then continue down your list, and we'll try and address them at the very end.
Okay. Rumor has been that Cohen Scrap or Recycling, that's being sold, and possibility of a hotel being built there. I have no idea.
That's
okay.
Private property and.
Oh, I figured that by the time somebody would have said we want to do this, you guys would have been informed. Okay. We have a problem. I've just now had the pleasure of being able to take my granddaughter from the high school to the elementary school for tennis practice. Okay. So it's the first time I've ever needed to go down Washington Boulevard and turn left on West Elkton. Where they have the detour sign, you can't see.
Okay.
All it has to be is moved about 10 or 12 feet. It'd be easy to do. You talk to somebody and they say, well, we'll look into it.
Well, no, you got the right people here at the right time. We're going to put that on the list.
That's what I'm looking at. Yes, sir. Okay. A rumor that went on a while back is that Hamilton was looking to sell its utilities off. Is that a possibility, or is that out of the realm?
I can speak only for myself, but I'll never vote for anything like that. We own them. We do a good job with them. We do a great customer service. with them, and I think our citizens like owning our utilities.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on from that one, because I don't think that's going to happen.
With all the traffic that's going to increase due to Spooky Nook, which is a good thing for the city of Hamilton, going up B Street to West Elkton Road and then turning on Washington Boulevard, that's going to be a bear. Because everybody and their brother's going to be headed to McDonald's, Wendy's, everything else. You know that's what kids want, chicken nuggets. Okay. The other thing is, it's getting increasingly difficult with traffic as it is to pull out of the neighborhoods that we live in up there on the Washington Estates, up with the Miranda Homes and Cotswold. We need some traffic lights.
We are very familiar with that area.
Okay.
Because people wanting to possibly develop and all, but.
Yep.
Okay. Is that your list, or you got some more?
That's pretty much it. Oh, when do the street repairs start? You know, we paid our, the taxes passed and said, okay, we're going to start repairing City of Hamilton streets.
All right. I'm going to try and, Beckett Paper, are we working on any kind of street that's going through Beckett Paper? Can anybody answer that?
I can.
I think I can maybe provide some color on the Beckett Paper site. We've been working with a development company that is very interested in redeveloping several of the large buildings on that site, which is why they're still there. The company that owns the property actually wanted to demolish the property, all the buildings on the property, and we've asked them not to. I think that we'll have something in front of council maybe in the next 90 days in terms of an update. But what we're trying to do at the Schuler-Biddinghofen Mill in Lindenwald is very similar to what we want to do at the Beckett Paper, former Beckett Paper Mill also.
Okay, I just wondered because the Beckett Paper Mill, didn't that burn at one point? That's why part of it was torn down?
Yes, there was a fire in, I think it was October of 2016.
Yes, okay.
All right, now, I want to address the West Elkton B Street, because it's challenging.
It's a very severe traffic hazard, yes.
Other citizens have too. Rich, I guess there could be a detour sign that could be looked at or moved or something.
Yeah, we'll definitely look at it immediately tomorrow morning with staff.
All right.
Okay,
And
I appreciate that, thank you.
And the amount of traffic and the way some people drive on that street in front of where you live is, and there'll probably be more traffic, so we have to look at what we can do to improve flow and safety and develop that area in the right way so it won't become unsafe for people driving down that street.
Right.
And it's close to a school, fully aware of that.
Yep.
Rich, he described that turn from B Street on the West Elkton. I mean, I guess he'd like to see what we could do to maybe improve it the way it is now. Moving the sign would be a good thing, but just keep an open mind about the way it's going to be and the way it is now.
Yeah, our traffic engineering continually evaluates that intersection on a regular basis to see if it does warrant a traffic signal or any other improvements that we might make.
Okay. Traffic signal would be ideal. Obviously, I'm looking for a traffic signal coming in and out of some of our neighborhoods. Even if it's just a boom, you drive up to it to approach it. Otherwise, it stays green for Washington Boulevard. Keep traffic flowing.
I know Planning Commission does hear potential developments in that area, and what we always think about, consider is traffic, safety, pedestrians.
Yep.
So, those issues are on Planning Commission's mind when things are brought before us, and it's also on council's minds when those things are brought before us.
Okay.
Street levy, can you maybe summarize street levy dollars?
Well, the earlier presentation on the Cape Ceiling, we are using street levy dollars for that project in Random Hills. We also have multiple projects in Lindenwald and out on the west side. And also, we just opened bids for our Leo Sanders Drive water main replacement project, which will use street levy funding to do the resurfacing after we're done with the water main replacement. Corin Avenue is underway. We'll be using street levy funding next year to repave that street after we're done with utility improvements. So I believe I sent out a summary. We've got nearly $4 million of street levy funding allocated on our projects underway at the moment.
Okay, it just did. you always wonder where it's going to be done, who's going to, who's going to be the first recipients, and kind of who's last on the list. Obviously, we know the area we live in, it's water and freezing that damages and destroys the streets. We can't stop it. Okay.
And there is a website, correct?
Yes, there.
That you could go to,
Right.
so, and that lists all of the streets that are being done, that were selected, and how it's happening.
Okay.
So we can get you that, someone can get you that website. You can take a look at it anytime you want.
Okay, well, thank you, I appreciate it. I think this pretty well took care of it. Like I said, I wanted to thank all the council and all of the city for all the work that they've done in revitalizing the city of Hamilton. It's been a long time coming, but we're back. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for carrying and coming to council.
Thank you.
Okay, Richard Scheid. Good evening.
Good evening to you guys. Honorable Mayor, distinguished council members, and citizens. My name is Richard Scheid. My address is 941 Bro Avenue, and I'm a longtime resident of Lindenwold. I want to talk to you tonight about a building that doesn't have to be moved, by the way, the Schuler and Benninghofen Mill. So I want to provide some background. Placed in front of some of you are some samples of the mill's production. Two of the items are borrowed from the Butler County Historical Society, and one object is from my personal collection. I hope that you enjoy seeing and handling the artifacts from the past efforts of Lindenwold workers. Councilwoman Veer, your blanket would have been a wedding gift if you and Larry had married in the 40s or 50s. You would have picked out the rose color on the bridal registry at Wilmer's department store. Okay. This ad is from Good Housekeeping, a national magazine, and it advises you to take your blanket and squish it a little bit and see if you can squeeze the air out of it, so it's the air pockets, and also to put your hand in between the layers to feel its warmth. By 1958, Schuler and Benninghofen's 100th anniversary, 125,000 of those blankets have been made. Enough to go from here to Toledo end to end. By the way, Mariposa, which is the brand name they used, is Spanish for butterfly, which was an allusion to the lightness of the blankets. Vice Mayor Pullman, your Schuler and Benninghofen blanket is from an earlier time, circa 1910, 1920. Its pattern is that of a Native American trade blanket of the 1800s. It's heavier than the wedding gift blanket and therefore much warmer. Perhaps it was taken by a family to a cabin in Michigan on a lake, or maybe used on outdoor sleeping porches, which were popular in the 1910s. You've all heard the phrase dyed in the wool. Schuler and Benninghofen wool was dyed before being spun. That means the core of the fiber was colored, and not just the outside surface of the yarn. So if you are described as being a dyed-in-the-wool person, it means your convictions and beliefs go deep to your core and not just on the surface. Councilman Ryan, the product you have was the big money product for the mill. It's a sample piece of a large roll of paper-making felt used as a bed to soak up water from the wood pulp at the mills. The rolls were shipped all over Australia, New Zealand, South America, and 48 states. Perhaps you brought it home from your mill job, and you used it as an extra blanket or a makeshift rug or a mat in the kitchen. In 1958, by the way, the firm produced 750,000 pounds of the felt rolls. Felt, by the way, is crushed. The wool fibers are crushed and not spun into yarn. So your object has more in common with a cowboy hat than it does with the blankets over here. Okay, and the mill celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1958. In 1967, it was purchased by the Orr Felt Company of Piqua, Ohio, under the premise of operating two mills. Within 6 months, the mill was closed, and the machines were either sold or shipped to Piqua, Ohio, for the mill. I hope this introduction has provided some insight into the contributions of our mill and of its employees to Hamilton and the nation over its 74 years of operation in Linawald. Thank you. The Historical Society would be upset with me for that.
Yes, she would.
Yeah.
Michael Ryan was all excited. He thought this was a Bengals blanket for a minute. But that's what it precedes it.
That is right.
Dick, I want you to know my mom and dad were married in 1945, and they had one of those rose blankets at home that I remember.
One thing I didn't show, I only have pictures of them, and that's the expensive Indian blankets that they made. And those are quite collectible. A lot of the celebrities collect them along with
Oh, wow.
the equivalent to what Pendleton does today. These are of the period, so they sold them to Indians and they sold them to famous people now. A lot of condescending. I was told that if I had to ask how much one cost, I couldn't afford to buy one.
Yeah. Crazy. That's great.
Thank you again. Our last speaker, the audience of citizens, is Dan Hancock.
My name's Dan Hancock. I live at 67 Herman Avenue in Hamilton, Ohio. Just like the last gentleman said about traffic there coming up Elkton onto Northwestern Boulevard, I turned there on Northwestern Boulevard and traffic was stopped all the way from there over to Cleveland Avenue. Solid traffic. They couldn't get through the intersection at Cleveland. You either need to put a traffic light there or put a policeman there. A half hour before school lets off to a half hour after school lets off. I mean, it was just solid. And once you start getting Spooky Nook there, you're going to have people coming up to go to McDonald's and that, and it's going to be a nightmare through there. So you need to see about putting a traffic light there. And the other thing is the gentleman here with these new flashing lights for crossing Eaton Avenue, they look really nice in that. But the only thing is you put the pole right in the middle of the ramp coming up for the bike trail. So you need to move the ramp over 2 feet or move the pole over. I mean, for those new flashing lights you're putting up. That's another problem. And also the sign there saying don't block Mark Avenue off of Heaton, that hasn't gone up yet. And still people blocking the intersection. And the other thing is with the Black Street and B Street there, and that it's supposed to open up in 2 days. That's what it was said, 75 days. Well, in 2 days, I doubt that you're going to have it open. And Josh emailed somebody in my community group there saying that, well, we had rain and it delayed the opening by at least over a week in that. So you need to put it in the paper when you're going to suggestively have it opened up in that, so people will know when it's going to open and put the different sections of when you think they're going to open up. And again, like I said, up there coming over Pertana there, you got a sign there. Nobody's put anything over it. Just, you don't have to take the sign down. Just put a paper bag over it and that until you're ready to reopen it again. And same thing coming up C Street there at Gordon. There's another sign saying detour. You turn the corner and detour, and it says the road's closed ahead. So you need to put a paper bag over that sign there too. So to help flow the traffic and that, and let them know you can't go that way. The other thing is that, let's see here, Second Street too. On the train depot here, and that was $600,000. Now it's almost tripled the price. Now you're talking about 1,700,000 that, and then you're talking about you have to have another contractor come in and move another section of the building and that, so that's going to jack it up even more. So like Carla and Susan said before, you're starting to throw bad money away in that. You got to take a hard look at your investment there into that. And the other thing is that see the train depot signs don't blink. The bike trail, like I said, you put a new ramp on the Flub side. You put a new ramp there for the bike trail, but on the side where the Little League is, you didn't do anything to that side. You just, when they got down on the Flub side, they just packed up their equipment and left. And the side on the Little League side, nobody's done anything. And like I said, it's just sitting there with those new lights overhead to be turned on, and you can't go down because there's no ramp.
Yeah, 1 more minute, sir.
And let's see, Second Street to the side, Flubs, on the bike trail on that, a lot of people in the neighborhood wanted to know when it was going to start and not end. And phase 3, you got going from Spooky Nook down to Main Street. That wasn't even in the picture. Phase 3 was supposed to be from Flubs over to Main Street. And that's nothing's been said or no grants been pursued for that yet. So, and people are looking, to go that way, and you got ramps over there at Main Street for it, and you got it across the street there on the other side of Main Street heading towards Millville, but nothing in between. So, people like to know when that section's going to start. Let's see.
That's about it on time, sir.
So,
Dan, everything's a process.
Please?
Everything's a
Well,
process.
I understand that, but, like I said, could put some dates out, saying, hey, tentatively, this is when we're going to start. And,
Right.
Or this is tentatively, how much more the traffic's going to be delayed,
I agree with you. Giving people timelines is a good idea. Everything is a process. Your name appears for 4 different areas of response from our August 11th meeting. You got a copy of our response?
Yeah.
That means you coming to the podium resulted in these 4 actions either being taken place or getting information out there to our citizens.
Yep.
And thanks for bringing up the issue about what you've seen of traffic on Washington Boulevard. I mean, we've had 2 people talk about that, so it needs to be continued to be looked at.
Good.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. That takes care of the vocal audience of citizens part, but I think there's a letter that was submitted to you. Is that correct, Mr. City Clerk?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And I believe that was going to be read into the record?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
So this is a letter from Sydney Garcia Tovar. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter in hopes of changing the name of Smalley Boulevard Park. I want to name it after someone who's very special to the neighborhood and someone very special to me. I want to rename it after my daughter, Sydney Anise Garcia Tovar. I moved onto Smalley Boulevard with Sydney when she was about 4 years old. Sydney was instantly a light in the neighborhood. Smalley Park was where she spent her childhood. She grew up at the park, playing countless games and sharing endless laughter with other neighborhood kids, forming bonds and memories with other children that they now will carry around and treasure for the rest of their lives. These memories of Sydney are all we have left of her. These memories of Sydney are now are how she lives on. In July 2018, Sydney was killed in Fairfield Township. She was just 16 years old. She was a recent graduate at the Miami School through a program at Hamilton High School. She wanted to enlist when she turned 18, but she was still undecided as to which branch she wanted to go into. Sydney was motivated and driven to succeed. She had immense potential and would have excelled at whatever she had decided to do if she would have had the opportunity to do so. Sydney has been gone for over 3 years, which doesn't feel quite real, or doesn't feel quite real. There are still so many of her friends and family who haven't been able to get over her death yet. I've had a couple of people come forward and tell me that Smalley Park is where they feel closest to Sydney. I recently just ordered a bench and tree to be placed in memorial of Sydney. Not only did I feel compelled to do this for Sydney, but I knew I needed to do it for her friends in hopes that they would be able to find some sort of comfort. I feel as though designating this spot at the park for her will be very special and healing for her friends because they They have somewhere that they can truly feel connected to her. After planning the memorial spot for my daughter, I really started thinking about how much Smalley Park shaped Sydney. After all, she quite literally spent almost every day of her childhood there. My idea began with just a bench, but it has grown from there. I feel the need to request that Smalley Boulevard Park be renamed Sydney's Park. Sydney deserves to be honored for the way that she changed the world while she was here. The best way to honor her would be to commemorate her life at the place that felt second to home to Sydney, this park. That is why I am so passionate about this. Sydney truly touched the heart of every single person she interacted with. She was a real inspiration and a role model to her peers. She motivated her friends to succeed in school. She had an illuminative personality. She could make anyone laugh. She was always prepared to go on an adventure and have fun. She knew how to love deeply. Sydney had adaptive personality and which made her compatible with all different types of people. She could be whatever you needed her to be. She could a shoulder to cry on, a friend to hug, a voice of reason. With that being said, my end goal is not merely to change the name of this park, but rather to ensure that I will never let anyone forget my daughter and her impact on the world.
All right. Thank you for reading that letter, and that is something for council's consideration. I think, Mr. Pullman, you brought that to our attention, is that correct?
I did, and I did talk to Ms. Tavar on this, and she called me, and I did some checking on this, and I think with Liz did some homework for me on this, and thank you, Liz, for doing it. But normally we won't rename parks because they may have been left to us by a family, or it's just a stipulation of it. Or sometimes these parks we may, I think you told me that we would rename them for somebody that maybe did something in the city, maybe that was in the administration or whatever. You did check on it, and there's no will or anything that's saying that the park has to stay as Smalley Park. So I did ask Stephanie Tavar to, send her letter in, come in and talk. She was going to talk last meeting, but it was pretty long, like it was, tonight. She had to go pick up grandchildren. And so I guess her consideration is she wants to know if, it is up to council, I believe, that we could change the name on this. And she is planning to come to this meeting at some time and tell her story again about Sydney. And I told her, I said, council needs to look at it. We can look at it and we can talk about it. I don't know what the process is, so you have to tell me that. But I thought it was pretty heartfelt for her to do this, and it's not a bad idea. So something that council thinks about. I guess tell me where to go from there, or tell Ms. Tavar where we need to, how we have to pursue this, and if we want to do this. Okay.
Sounds like we communicate with her, and she will come to council too, possibly, and make this a personal request.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
And I agree, this is a very heartfelt letter. But like with a lot of things that we seem to be brought up to us recently, can we get a policy put in place for this? I mean, this is now setting a precedent where what happens when somebody else comes up? So I don't mind her coming here and talking to us, but I wouldn't even want to entertain it until we agree that we're going to have some kind of criteria put in place for the next person that wants to come and do it.
And Carla, that's a good statement, because that's exactly what Liz and I talked about, and it does set a precedent of doing this, just kind of going back to the flag flying out here, flags. And I told her that is, that's going to be a roadblock that we have to, that we have to overcome. I just think we need to communicate with her and see what we can or can't do.
I don't know that it's necessarily a roadblock. I mean, how great is it that somebody would want to do it? But I just wouldn't want to. I wouldn't do anything until we had a policy in place of how we do it.
That's a good point.
Maybe council needs to come up with a policy, but honestly, I don't think I would change the name of anything named after somebody whose family donated the land or did something special for our city. Smalley, I've got no idea. I've driven it. I'm not quite sure what the history of it is, but be that as it may, that might be part of the policy, would be a donation or in memory of somebody who did something for the city. I don't think I would ever change it, but okay. This will generate policy and further discussion.
Okay, and I'll pass it on, and she will
Great.
probably be here at the, when they kind of calm down a little bit on the meetings, okay? So,
Okay.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you. We now go to the consent agenda. That includes all meeting minutes, staff reports, caucus reports, receiving file information. Relatively new, and that's the audience of citizens informational report, where we respond to our citizens who go to the podium. Information report for both July 2021 investment report and July 2021 financial report. Committee of the whole, we're going to go into that now so we can hear a little bit more about what's on the caucus agenda. Is there a motion that the regular meeting be recessed and the committee of the whole take place? Moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Fear. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we go into council of the whole at 8:21, and let's see what we have on the list.
Okay, so for Mayor, at the beginning of our committee of the whole, I will have Liz Heaton, planning director. She will do a brief presentation on caucus items 8 and 14.
Good evening, Council. So the first item, this is something that was recommended to be approved by Planning Commission. It's a preliminary plat for 8 detached single-family homes in the Prospect Hill neighborhood, former Lincoln Elementary School site. And so you can see it's the area in red. It's one of the 2 parts of the property, a little south of Fort Hamilton Hospital and a little off Eaton Avenue. And it's Neighborhood Housing Services that is proposing this development. And these are the houses that they are proposing to build. Do you have any questions?
Any questions about number 8 at all?
Can I just ask one question, please? Liz, about detached garages, is that something that we would allow in the city? I don't see them much anymore, but that neighborhood, yes.
Yes, so the goal, and they're actually kind of following the city's lead on this, was that the neighborhood was built without people having curb cuts on the street side. So it would so we asked them to have access from by creating an alley to keep consistent with the design, and then also avoid having new 8 curb cuts onto the streets. They're looking actually to because the market people like to have attached garages. They'd really like to have it be attached, but from the rear. So that is not for sure yet, but I was just emailing with Lori DeStola tonight about it, talking to her that's their goal. So they'd have a longer driveway and it actually would be attached, but still access from the alley.
And then last thing, does the city maintain the alley then when they create that? Is it like a street, or who maintains that?
Yes, it's going to be a dedicated alley, correct, Rich?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And is that where trash is picked up? Like,
Trash is picked up in the alley, recycling's picked up on the front.
oh, okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions at all? All right, thank you.
And this is an update on the Rosfeld Flats project that came to council last time. Wanted to just highlight, summarize quickly the changes that were made, and just see if you have questions. I did have a map, but just kind of as a backup. So there were, I believe, 13, conditions of approval, and we added 3 and are proposing to remove 1. And the reason, the first one you'll see the strike through is the one that we're proposing to remove, and that's because I felt like there was confusion about what it meant. And so simply put, it says at minimum an additional 20 off-street parking spaces dedicated for residential unit tenants will be provided within 500 feet of the property. We're recommending to strike that and instead replace it with the Rosfeld Flats will provide a minimum of 90 parking spaces dedicated to and restricted for residents of the property. The project as it stands right now actually has 98 parking spaces identified, but the design of some of the parking lots isn't final, so just to be conservative, I said 90, but just reminding you that there's actually will likely be more. And also reminding you that the requirement is 114 parking spaces. And then another bullet, a condition proposed is the city will provide a loading zone, loading parking space designated as a 15-minute parking area that is located immediately in front of the Rosfeld Flats. This 15-minute parking can also be utilized for area restaurants for takeout orders. And then another, the final change, in order to preserve public parking for visitors to Main Street, Rosfeld Flats residents must utilize their dedicated off-street parking spaces. Residents must observe the same on-street and public parking restrictions similar to any other person. Do you have questions?
Any questions at all? I think those came as a result of what we had last week and the professional team's work on coming up with answers to their questions.
My compliments for the fine tuning. Thank you.
I did send them to the people who spoke at council too, to see if they had any input. All I heard back was from Kim McKay, and she just said thank you. That was all I heard.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Do we have any others that are going to be part of the committee of the whole?
Yes, Mayor. For item number 16, our Law Director, Ms. Letitia Block, will do a brief presentation about unnamed aircraft vehicles.
Good evening, Mayor Moeller, members of City Council, Mr. City Manager, residents of Hamilton. I'm Letitia Block. At our last council meeting, there was a citizen, John Murray, who came before City Council, and he raised issues that he described as menacing in his neighborhood on and around Franklin Street. And at that meeting, he specifically asked the city to enact laws that would protect citizens from the invasion of privacy by drone. And our city manager committed that we would present a preliminary draft for this meeting related to the use of drones. And so that is what you have in your council packet. And there is attached to the caucus report a draft of that legislation. That draft addresses the concerns raised by Mr. Murray related to protection for privacy concerns. It also prohibits the use of drones for harassment, for voyeurism, for stalking, and for trespassing. In looking at this legislation, we looked at several communities that have drone legislation, the city of Cleveland, Cuyahoga Heights, Sandusky County Park District, and Youngstown. In addition, we also looked at a House bill that was introduced last year related to the use of drones. That particular legislation, the Ohio House bill, prohibits drones for stalking, voyeurism, and trespassing. And so the language that you see in the draft is to mirror the language that you see in that House bill that was introduced. So the draft that you have is a preliminary draft. There will be a new version of that by the time you see it again. Mayor Moeller has been in touch with me already to see if we can look at perhaps increasing penalties for repeat offenders. And so we're already taking a look at that and plan to bring that back in the next draft that you have. My caucus report gives two options for City Council. It is whether or not you want us to proceed to the next council meeting and to have an ordinance, or whether or not you want to direct this matter to the Ordinance Review Commission. And so my question is just if I can just know what the pleasure of City Council is. My sense from the last council meeting is we wanted to act with a sense of urgency, which is why we have this draft, and we can definitely proceed with an ordinance at the next council meeting. I just want to get the direction from council on this issue, but I'm also happy to take questions related to the drafts.
You put a lot of work into this, and it was as a result of a gentleman went through one heck of a lot of, and I think the neighborhood is still in some ways suffering. I'd like to see it continue in front of us next to possibly pass it really as soon as possible. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Letitia, thank you for pivoting so quickly on this. 2 weeks ago, in the presentation that we heard, and not be able to deliver this on as a result of inspecting what other municipalities have, what the State House has in their bill and things like that. So I agree with the mayor and Carla that we should move forward for city council activity on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Murray, I know, has seen this and is pleased with the direction that we are going with this. Okay.
Moving on from that one, I also have a brief presentation from Rich Engel about the purchase of real property for North B Street and Park Avenue intersection improvement project.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizen. This is the intersection of Park Avenue ramp and North B Street. As a result of the anticipated increased traffic from the Spooky Nook complex driving south on B Street, we are constructing a right turn lane at this intersection so travelers can then turn right onto Park Avenue and head in a different direction. As a result of that, we needed to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the owners of these 3 parcels, and there are 3 parcels there. The total acreage is 0.0334 acres, so it's not a lot of intrusion onto the property. We try to minimize it as much as possible, but still maintain the ability to construct a right turn lane at a signalized intersection. Are there any questions about this request?
Questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I don't really have a question about the request, but that's where that flood memorial is?
It's on the other side. We're not touching that.
Okay, all right.
We've already built the right turn lane to go from
thought so.
Park Avenue ramp north on B Street. This is on the opposite side of the
Okay.
intersection.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
And then lastly, I have 2 slides for caucus agenda items number 17 and 18. One is an ordinance restricting not to exceed $7 million of general fund reserves up to 60 months, and the other is a supplemental.
Thank you. We discussed this at the last council meeting during the ARPA presentation, but you will see an action item on the September 8th council agenda that where city staff is recommending that we restrict $7 million of the ARPA fund for a 5-year period, with the intent after the 5-year period is over to move those funds into a restricted account solely to be used towards the construction or construction-related activities to construct North Hamilton Crossing. To be very clear, for the next 60 months, the money would be set aside in an account. It'd actually be the money stays with the city, but it'll be restricted on our balance sheet for the next 60 months. Cover any crazy things that could happen during a pandemic, COVID, anything else relative to Spooky Nook debt. We have a lot of funds invested in that project. This money will set into it'll be kept in-house, restricted on our own personal balance sheet with the full intent. 60 months goes by, then we would take that money and deposit it into a construction account for North Hamilton Crossing.
Any questions about that caucus agenda item? Okay. Dave? Mr. Jones?
So, good evening, Mayor, members of council. So this is caucus agenda item number 18 that deals with the supplemental appropriation. The total supplemental appropriation is $39.5 million, but it's very important to note that only $700,000 of that is new money or additional money to be spent in 2021. The first item, you can see $1,000 increase for additional property demolitions out of the general fund. We also had a $296,000 property tax increase. A lot of that's timing. We're responsible for the first year when we get property, and then we apply for the exemption. There was a $143,000 increase in municipal courts budget. That was offset by a grant from the Ohio Supreme Courts. We addressed the $7 million, Mr. Smith just addressed that, The only reason you guys are seeing it on this supplemental is city council must approve all transfers between funds. We take this money and put it in a different fund. The bulk of it, I believe, is around $31 million is utilities. We're just correcting the flow of funds. When we transfer money between utility funds, it can increase certain coverages. It's big to Moody's, it's big to Standard & Poor's. We're just correcting those flow of funds. There's no additional monies. The final small piece is $179,000. Director Carrier presented to you, I believe, on July 14th. It was a software subscription for some security reasons. And then $50,000 is the Economic Development Design Assistance Program. Any questions?
Questions? Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Yes. That take care of the committee of the whole. Is there a motion that the committee of the whole be closed?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. That's 8:36. I'll accept the motion that the regular meeting be reconvened.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Fear, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Roll call vote on that motion.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
This regular meeting is reconvened at 8:37. And then I'll accept the motion on the reports on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Pullman, Vice Mayor Pullman.
All right. Make a motion that with the exception of the items so noted, council receive the reports of the consent agenda and concur in their recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Fear. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. We now go to the public hearing, and I'll set the motion that the regular meeting be recessed and a public hearing take place.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. It is 8:38. And Mr. City Clerk, if you'll go into the public hearing, please.
Public hearing regarding an ordinance amending the City of Hamilton zoning ordinance number 7503 by changing the zoning of 1338, 1320, 1284, 1248, and 1240 Stahlhaber from multiple office, residential, and business zoning districts to R1 single-family residence zoning district. That's item 1. Item 2. 1350 Stahlhaber Road and the Crown Villas Condominium 525 Northwest Washington Boulevard from multiple office, residential, and business zoning districts to RPD Residential Plan Development Zoning District. And the third item, 980 Stahlhaber Road and 1010 Stahlhaber Road properties with no known zoning designation, including an electric substation, to BPD Business Plan Development Zoning District, City of Hamilton applicant.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak at this public hearing? Anyone in the audience wish to speak at this public hearing? Hearing nobody in the audience, plus no one did sign the public speaking book. Anyone in council wish to speak at this time or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Ryan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. It is 8:39. I'll accept the motion that the regular meeting be reconvened.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Roll call vote on that motion, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
Regular meeting is reconvened at 8:39. Then I'll accept the motion regarding council actions pertaining to legislative items.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move that a note be made upon the minutes that each member of council was furnished a printed copy of each item of legislation prior to its being considered at this meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Fear. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that motion is carried. We go to pending legislation, agenda item number 20, second reading of an ordinance involving some pay ranges.
ordinance amending and supplementing Schedule A of the city's classification and compensation plan as set forth in emergency ordinance number EOR 2020-1-6 adopted January 15th, 2020 to assign the pay ranges for the gas and water distribution superintendent, assistant gas and water distribution superintendent, and the gas and water distribution supervisor. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Ryan. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 21, second reading of an ordinance involving related to school uses and zoning.
An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Hamilton, Ohio by amending certain sections of the zoning ordinance number 7503 related to school uses. City of Hamilton applicant. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Vaughn.
ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Vice Mayor Pullman. Any comments, discussion about this one? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 22, second reading of an ordinance involving some parking places and special places for handicap and the like.
An ordinance establishing restricted parking places and special places for parking for the handicapped and repealing certain other traffic regulations. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pullman.
a motion that the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, seconded by Councilmember Ryan. Any discussion or comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 23, second reading of an ordinance involving some minor clarifications and revisions in our zoning ordinances.
An ordinance amending sections of the City of Hamilton zoning ordinance number 7503 related to minor clarifications and revisions to said zoning ordinance. City of Hamilton applicant. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I
Nab.
move this be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nab, seconded by Councilmember Ryan. Any discussion or comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Okay, we go to agenda item number 24, which is second reading of an ordinance involving Hamilton Community Authority.
An ordinance appointing members to of the Board of Trustees of the Hamilton Community Authority. Second reading.
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Vice Mayor Pullman. Discussion or comment on this one? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Go to number 25, second reading of an ordinance involving Flying Ace Express Car Wash.
An ordinance approving the replat of 702 Northwest Washington Boulevard, part lot number 30378, crossing to Gun Eden Shopping Center to split an outlot for the proposed car wash as 724 Northwest Washington Boulevard, Flying Ace Express Car Wash LLC applicant. Second reading.
Vice Mayor Pullman.
Make a motion that the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 26, second reading of an ordinance involving Great Miami Brewing Incorporated.
An ordinance approving the conveyance of certain real property located within the City of Hamilton, Ohio's urban renewal area to Great Miami Brewing Incorporated, 514 Maple Avenue. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Ryan.
move that the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Councilmember Ryan, second by Councilmember Nab. Discussion, comment on this one? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted, 6-0.
Thank you. We go to agenda item number 27, second reading of an ordinance involving the Community Improvement Corporation and $450,000.
Emergency ordinance affirming the designation of the Community Improvement Corporation of Hamilton, Ohio as the city's agency for development in the city and authorizing a grant in the amount of $450,000 to be made to the Community Improvement Corporation of Hamilton, Ohio for public purposes and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Member Vaughn.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
second reading of emergency ordinance. Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Fear. Any discussion or comments on this one? And hearing none, roll call, please.
Pullman,
Abstain?
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted 5-0.
We now go to new legislation, agenda item number 28. Two readings, involves Gardner Ridge.
See, an ordinance approving the preliminary and final plat for Gardner Ridge, Section 3, consisting of 16.3 acres of the Gardner Ridge subdivision situated in the First Ward, north side of the city of Hamilton, Butler County, Ohio, JA Development LLC, applicant.
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pullman.
make a motion that the rules be suspended and said ordinance be read a second time by its title.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Roll call vote on that motion.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted 6-0.
Okay, second reading of the ordinance, please.
The preliminary and final plat for the Gardner Ridge Section 3 consisting of 16.3 acres of the Gardner Ridge subdivision situated in the First Ward, north side of the city of Hamilton, Ohio, Butler County, Ohio. Sorry, city of Hamilton, Butler County, Ohio, JA Development LLC, applicant.
Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pullman.
make a motion that the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Any comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Ordinance adopted 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 29, which is a first reading of an ordinance.
An ordinance amending the City of Hamilton zoning ordinance number 7503 by changing the zoning of 1338, 1320, 1284, 1248, and 1240 Stahlhaber from multiple office residential and business zoning districts to R1 single-family residential zoning district, 1350 Stahlhaber Road, and Crown Villas Condominium, 525 Northwest Washington Boulevard, from multiple office residential and business zoning districts to RPD Residential Plan Development Zoning District, and 980 Stahlhaber Road and 1010 Stahlhaber Road properties with no known zoning designation, including an electronic substation, to BPD Business Plan Development Zoning District, City of Hamilton applicant. First reading.
Thank you. We go to agenda item 30, first reading of the emergency ordinance involving purchase and sale, 327 Main Street.
An emergency ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to execute a purchase and sale agreement and related actions related to certain real property located at 327 Main Street, Hamilton, Ohio, 45013. Ray Smith and Greg Schlabach, property owner, City of Hamilton applicant. First reading.
To agenda item number 31, which is a resolution involving Magnolia Street.
A resolution declaring the intent to vacate a portion of Magnolia Street between North 3rd Street and North Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, situated in the 4th Ward, City of Hamilton, Ohio. City of Hamilton applicant.
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second. Councilmember Vaughn, seconded by Councilmember Ryan. Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 32, which is a resolution involving vacating a portion of South 4th Street Alley.
Declaring the intent to vacate a portion of South 4th Street Alley located between Sycamore Street Alley and Charles Street, situated in the 4th Ward, City of Hamilton, Ohio. City of Hamilton applicant.
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pullman.
motion that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Vaughn. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 33, resolution involving a side lot, 1115 Central.
A resolution approving the lease of certain real property acquired through the land bank to adjoining property owner as a side lot, 1115 Central Avenue.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Nab.
move that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nab, second by Councilmember Fear. Any comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted 6-0.
Go to agenda item number 34, which is a resolution also involving side lots.
Resolution approving the conveyance of certain real property acquired through the land bank to adjoining property owners as side lots. 1135, 1339, 1341 Franklin Street, 523 Ross Avenue, and 1217 Wallace Street.
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Pullman.
I'll make a motion that the resolution be adopted.
Second. Motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Ryan. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
We have to go to agenda item number 35, which is a resolution about House Bill number 361.
Resolution supporting and advocating for the passage of House Bill number 361 to amend sections 121.95 and 5589.99 and to enact sections 5589.25 of the Ohio Revised Code to establish new requirements and increase penalties that apply to a railroad company that unlawfully blocks a railroad crossing.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Ryan. Any discussion or comments on this one?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Ryan.
I just want to thank Representative Thomas Hall for introducing this bill. I'm very hopeful that the House is going to vote this in and get us some help down here, because it is affecting a lot of us in a very negative way, our businesses, our police officers, our firefighters, and our residents. So,
Any other comments at this time? And it does say, but a company that unlawfully blocks the railroad crossing.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no other questions or comments. Roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
We now go to agenda item number 36, resolution involving some OKI funding.
A resolution ratifying the filing of a grant application with the Ohio Kentucky Indiana Regional Council of Governments, OKI, relative to the funding for the Beltline Trail Phase 3 Black Street Bridge to High Main Bridge project and directing the city manager to accept the same and comply with the conditions of the grant.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Vaughn.
I move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Nab. Discussion or comments on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
We go to agenda item number 37, a resolution involving some contract issues.
Mayor and members of council, for item number 37, there are two options for consideration at council's pleasure. So I'll start with the first one. A resolution accepting the fact-finding report relating to certain issues and/or contract provisions for members of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 38, representing police officers and detectives, sergeants and lieutenants and captains. State Employment Relations Board case number 2020-med-11-1379, 2020-med-11-1377, and 2020-med-11-1378.
And Mr. Mayor, if the pleasure is to accept, then we can take a motion on that.
So the motion is to reject. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move
Councilmember
that the resolution to accept be adopted.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Fear. Any questions or comments about this matter in that motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Resolution adopted, 6-0.
I'll go to a CSX train depot issue. That's numbers 38 and 39.
So from Mayor, at this portion of the presentations, Rich Engel is present to answer any more questions about these items.
Is there a motion at this time, which I guess would be either 38 or 39?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the resolution to accept be adopted.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember I don't necessarily either or.
It is
an either or.
It's an either or proposition, and staff recommendation is for item 39.
Yes, that's correct. Madam Law Director, you're looking for a motion, so Mr. Mayor?
First, I'd like more questions from Mr. Engel at all. Okay, then is there a motion at this time?
Mr. Mayor?
Vice Mayor Pullman?
I'd like to make a motion to proceed with 39, to proceed with the movement of both structures of the CSX train depot beginning at the height of no more than 4 feet above the level, ground level.
Second. Motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Ryan. Discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Fear.
when are we going to know the total packet of what this is going to cost? Because it was even brought up tonight about when it is moved, who's responsible for getting rid of the debris that's left from it. Stop there for right now. So we have a total packet of what this is going to cost to move it, white box it, everything?
At the moment, it's $650,000, I believe, to move it. We're trying to stay within that budget. I'm working with the consulting engineer on the foundation design, so I'll have more details on that once we get more information from the geotech firm. They have completed their soil borings on the site, and then we'll be contacting CSX to give them more details on how the move's actually going to occur and let them know of their responsibility to deal with the remainder of the site after we move the buildings.
And no one feels like we should have a structural engineer come in and look at this building, we're all good just with somebody saying, yeah, I think it's okay, or, I mean, I just can't believe that this is going on like this. I feel like there's a certain amount of due diligence that should be done when you're doing something like this, and I realize that we're rushed into it because CSX, even though they gave us 2 years to come up with this, now we are rushing through this. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but, and I will be voting no for this because I still believe that we do have no idea of what this is going to cost in the long run. I believe with everything in me that this is going to become a money pit for the city. I believe that there are so many things, and again, I'm talking to you, not at you. I believe there's so many things this money could be spent on. You know, I went to the pollinator garden yesterday, and you look at the grants that could be given throughout the city to help. Police and fire can use the help. The Parks Conservancy. There are so many things that money could be spent on throughout this city that would affect everyone in the city other than this. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Vaughn?
Rich, you said, so we have set aside $650,000 for the move. Their bid was $350, is that correct? To move it from
$370, yeah.
Or $370 from 4 feet up. And so what's the remainder of that money designated for?
We need to build the foundations and then also build up to, from the foundation up to the underside of the remaining brick structure.
And we do not have a bid on that right
No.
now of any kind?
No, we do not.
Will it go out for bid? Will there be
Yes.
multiple bidders then?
Well, I don't know about multiple bidders, but we
okay.
will advertise,
Potentially
we will
there could, yeah.
competitively bid it, yes.
Okay. And so like in this case, where we got 2 bids, one being $1 million more than the other bid, if there is more than one bid, do we just always take the lowest bid? So you will take whatever the bid is and try to keep it under $650,000?
We take the lowest and most responsive bid, and if there's a contractor that bids that we're not familiar with, we always do the due diligence on checking the contractor's references and their financial stability.
Okay. And then I think it was last week, Joshua, or 2 weeks ago, you had said perhaps this could be as much as $2 million to get it white boxed. So we're just talking about setting it on a foundation right now. But in order to get it ready, I think we talked about plumbing and electric and everything else. So can you address that?
Yes, and again, this is work that has not been bid yet, so these are just estimates. So looking at the project from start to finish, obviously one step is if council proceeds with approving the contract to move it, there's going to have to be site work performed on the location we're sending it to. And I'm not sure if we have an estimate yet on the actual site work. I'm sure there's going to be some grading, removal of asphalt, things of that nature. You have to build the foundation. I would suggest to council that that we run utilities to that location while the foundation is being built, so it is then ready for use at a later point. Once the structure is placed on the foundation, then you're going to have things like the parking lot's going to have to be built because you're going to need to provide parking to a future tenant. You're going to have to put the exterior of the building in a solid shape first, and then the staff recommendation was to essentially white box it or gray box it, depending on what level you want to take it to, so it is ready for someone that can come in and then adapt it to whatever they need to use it for. The purpose, again, this is just my opinion, the purpose of putting the additional money into it now is I don't see a lot of a point to move it in its current condition to a different location and let it sit in its current condition. If we're going to move it, it was staff recommendation that you should take it to a level that it would be easy for a restaurant, a bar, the Hamilton Welcome Center, a combination thereof to be able to move in with a minimal, what they call TI or tenant improvement investment.
Okay. So we're basically, a vote tonight would be $2 million minimum.
I think,
is your estimate.
I think, and Rich, please correct me if you think this is wrong, I think that the low $2 million can accomplish those activities, but until we actually bid it, it's just a best guess at this time.
And this money would come from where?
That would be council's decision. Based on my ARPA presentation 2 weeks ago, I was suggesting the money come from the city's general fund. However, if you prefer it to come from ARPA funding or other sources, I mean, that's certainly council's decision. But I would say ARPA funds would be one bucket you could pull from. Our general fund could be a different bucket. I did sit down with our finance director, Dave Jones, maybe 3 weeks ago, and we looked at different alternatives. And we thought that the ARPA money, again, just our opinion, it would be cleaner if you use that for more of the catalytic high investment projects like a Schuler-Biddinghofen. If we put, say, $1.5 million in and we get a investment return of $20 million, we felt that's where the ARPA money should go. We felt this was more of a general fund project, but that's a policy decision by city council.
So may I ask a question too? I don't know who to ask this to, if it's going to you or to all of council. How much money are we willing to spend now? Because once it's moved, it's ours, and we're moving it. So, you know, at what point do we say, oh, $3 million is too much? Is that too much for anybody here? I mean, this is the money that belongs to 61,900 people in this city that we're supposed to be spending for. So I just would like to know, what is too much for us? Has that been decided, discussed, anything?
That sounds more like a council question.
I felt we were going to cap everything at $2 million.
That's what I thought too, right
So
around
how do you do
2.1.
that? How do you say we're capping it at $2 million and go ahead and move it and let it sit there, not doing anything with it? Or do you promise, cross your heart, promise it won't be more than $2 million?
Carl, and I appreciate all your comments and stuff, and there's a lot of concern because I've had concerns on other projects that we're looking at, and you know, I appreciate everything that you come up with.
We don't have a developer in the way for this. I mean, I know you've been concerned with
Schuler-Biddinghofen, I have, and everybody knows that, and you know, I've been concerned with that. That's not a guaranteed deal either, not yet. But the thing is, I thought we did talk about, originally I think it was $600,000 on the resolution, wasn't it? Not $650,000. And even though I wasn't happy that we rebid it and it cost us more, I think we got a better quality moving company now that I've heard from them, because I really wasn't happy that we rebid it. I didn't think we should do that, and I'll be honest with that. But we still have, if we have $200,000 into the foundation, we got $370,000 to move it, we're still $30,000 to the good that we can put into. We're at $570,000, and in the resolution we have $600,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if And then we have $1.5 million is what we said we would put into it at the max, is what I thought we said. So that's 2.1 for the whole project, and not to go over that, because I really don't want to go over that amount. And I think we can get this building whiteboard, as you said, get a new roof on it. It's going to have a new roof. And I think you're going to have, really it's just a lot of, I don't think we're going to have any cost in the CSX removal over there. They'll do that, I think. I don't think they're going to make us fill that hole in and stuff like that. They were going to tear it down anyway. So, we have to check on that, but I still think they probably will fill that in themselves.
If my memory recollects correctly, a couple months ago, council made the motion to spend the first $600,000, I believe it was $600,000 on the relocation.
Right.
The other $1.5 million was not voted on at that time. So the only money that's been approved by City Council to this point has been the $600,000 towards relocation and building the foundation and doing some of the work around the foundation.
But at this point, how do you say no to anything beyond that? And I guess the other question, we went over tonight with Schuler Benninghofen, you're going to have the electricity, the maintenance, the insurance. If it sits there for a good period of time, it just becomes an expense. That's just a statement. And then I would say, Mr. Vice Mayor, in your statement you just made, I stopped counting how many times you think. I think it will be okay. Not disrespectful to you. None of us are contractors here. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't think there's even a contractor that could guarantee us. We know the overcost and everything. So I just struggle with I think, and I hope, and I wish.
And if you don't mind, I appreciate your comments, and yeah, and it is a lot of I think, and it was same thing with Schuler Benninghofen as it is with the train depot. I heard a lot. We had people here for the train depot. We had one person that I remember against it. We had petitions out there for it. Okay, I was against Schuler Benninghofen. I just told Mike this, I think, tonight. But after I did my research and I get all these letters from Lindenwood and I go down to the protocol meeting, you know what? Sometimes my gut feeling, I have to go back to what the citizens said. If I had a whole bunch of people here in a petition and they're all sitting here, rooms loaded with people against the depot, I would have voted a different way. But I didn't see that. So with Schuler Benninghofen now, yeah, my gut feeling, it wasn't a good deal, but what the people said and all the good letters I had, and the pride that you have in Lindenwood, how could I vote no? Seriously, how could I vote no? And so how could I vote no on the train depot for the same reason? Because how many people do we have here complaining against it? You had phone calls, that's true.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up.
But but where were they here? That's my biggest thing.
Well, and I had someone on council call me and ask me, why am I so insistent about doing this? In the 13 and a half years I've been on council, I have not had so many people call me. And
Really?
quite honestly, when this council person says they're not calling me, I don't know why. Well, a lot of people, several are sitting in this room that said, thank God you're voting the way you are. I sent him copies of messages I got. The citizens, we should be doing what is the right thing for everybody. We should not be sitting here. Our egos should not be so big that we think that because we want this or we think this is the right thing to do, or there's no citizens, we didn't stage people like that were coming here to say, please keep the depot, as well-meaning as they are. So to say, if there had been more people here to say, no, don't do the depot, I wouldn't do it, that makes no sense to me.
We had a petition though out there too.
Well, I think 2,100 votes, as I said that night, if each of those people had said, here's $100, it would have gone a long way for me. There's no dollars behind it, and I'm concerned about the taxpayer dollar and how we're spending it. When we talk about our streets, we talk about our buildings, we talk about all of these things that we're going to discuss with ARPA, whether it's fire, safety, mental health, the blight in our neighborhoods. $2 million goes a really long way.
The different grants that we're talking about doing, you know, there is so much that this money could do to affect the individual citizens that live in Hamilton now, as opposed to well-meaning people that want us to save a building. And, you know, back to a conversation we had earlier today, what kind of precedent does this set? Because there's a lot of old buildings in Hamilton. So what happens when we're caving like this with no facts in place, set, concrete to move it? What are we going to do the next time somebody comes and wants us to save a building or move a building?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I've remained silent through this. I've had the privilege to serve on council when we saved High Street. I've had the privilege to serve on council when we saved Champion Mill. I've had the privilege now on council to listen to proposals on Beckett, proposals on Schuler-Benninghofen, and where those are going. In the past few months, we've had proposals, and it's taken legs now on Maple Street. We heard many passionate people in the audience about 3 months ago talk to us. Once it's rubble, it's rubble. And when I called Carla last week to have that discussion, I wanted to have, when we spoke for an hour, I wanted to have a fair and frank conversation just to understand the passion that we're hearing tonight from all of us. I do believe that the building, the lower building, is probably more viable than the 2.5-story building, but they're moving as a pair. It's an all or nothing. I do believe that the property on Maple Street that we're potentially moving these buildings to has a place in the community for future development. We have found restaurateurs, we have found hoteliers, we have found all sorts of people that are coming to Hamilton and wishing to be part of the fabric of our community. We haven't had that prior to 10 years ago. We were wishing. I had a community member tell me this city was dying, and the past recent city councils have affected, as have the city administration, what is going on in our city today. I do believe that if we move that, they will come. It's kind of like the Field of Dreams. They will come. And if we don't, if we allow CSX to tear that down on that small parcel that it's on now, we may regret in a year or two. I talked to Dave Jones about the, if you will, the health of our general fund. Our general fund is healthy. We have made it healthy these past 10 years, collectively. I trust that bids that will have to be, as Joshua said, the tear out of the surface property over there. Rich talked about core samples that are being done, evaluations, so we know the 40 feet down is stable to be able to hold these buildings in place for the next 50 or 100 years. One building was built in 1855, the other in 1885. If we tear those down, and we allow them to disappear, as Jack Whalen said to us, they're gone. So I'm listening tonight. I appreciate all the comments, but we will regret if we vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay. I struggle with the cost. I truly believe that we're going to find some partners who will help us do some of those improvements, which will bring the figure to below the $2 million. We are within the $600,000 to $650,000 range that we talked about for relocation expenses. But I view this as an opportunity to save something that's historic, to repurpose something that is historic. And a lot of the buildings that are being built today will not live as long as this building that we're talking about right now. This is an opportunity to improve Maple Avenue. And all of a sudden, we've got somebody else on Maple Avenue who wants to put a brewery in. And if we can continue to clean up Maple Avenue, that's going to be a better east-west corridor. It's going to be a safer corridor and more traffic, both pedestrian and vehicular. You know, sometimes we have to do things for those who follow us, not
us all the time, but for those who follow us. Now, this is an opportunity to do something for those who follow us. If it was just an old building, that nothing happened around that building, it'd be one thing. But so many things happened around this building that those who follow us, I believe, will appreciate the things that we did to save it. We've heard from this Wolf Company, which their material is impressive. He looked at it a few years ago. He knows how to do it. He's moved more than just the 7 depots that are pictured in this program. The Sturgis one is on their website, and I took a look at that, read the website. I believe in what he says. I believe the higher bid, the company which doesn't really do much of this, said that he thought it was structurally sound. And somebody who's done a lot of restoring of buildings in this town has told us that he believes it is structurally sound for this type of move. I believe this is an opportunity for us today, but also for those who follow us. Any other comments from any of us at this time?
Mr. Mayor, I will say I certainly respect that, and I respect the history of all of our buildings in this city. I think for me, it was the urgency that came about and that it happened so quickly. When I did a little research and found out that, you know, it's been 5-10 years ago, groups have said, let's save it, and it got down to, hours, weeks, months, we got to save it now. And I wish all of those who are certainly encouraging us to save this building had put their energy in it much sooner. And no fault of City Council, because look what we've done in this city, and certainly the council before me. And I respect that. It's the urgency and the unknown for me, and spending the money. And so that's where I've really struggled with this. But I appreciate what everyone has said. I appreciate those in CHAPS, Historic Hamilton, but the energy, I think we have all spent more energy on it than anyone else right now. And probably some sleepless nights too, just thinking about this and all the things, the decisions we have to make. So I struggle with it there, and I certainly appreciate the history, and I want it to live on. The timing on this is just bad.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
are we, as Joshua said, it's the council's decision as to what is the cap of what we'll spend. So how do we decide what is our cap?
We have heard our city professionals use that figure. I'm hoping that there'll be partners. I believe there'll be partners who will help us in this, whether it's donating money, labor, something like that. I don't believe it's going to be the $2 million figure. I believe it'll end up being less. That's where I'm at. I truly believe that. I do believe that. I do believe also when it's moved, people are going to see the potential, the opportunity, and I think that's going to create more interest than even what we have now.
Well,
So it's,
I truly hope I'm wrong. And I know I've spoken out more than I ever have in my time on council, because I in my heart, I believe everything I'm saying is right. But I don't want anyone to think I'm wishing this doesn't. I hope it does. I want it to succeed. I just don't have a good feeling, but I hope I'm wrong.
Agree.
other discussion? There's been a motion made and seconded on agenda item number 39. Roll call vote?
Pullman?
Yes.
Fear?
No.
Vaughn?
No.
Ryan?
Yes.
Nab?
Yes.
Moeller?
Yes.
That motion is adopted 4-2.
We now go to agenda item number 40, which is city council member appointment. And we need to look at city charter section 3.02, which is meant to guide us in this. And I believe by my count, we've got 8 to 10 meetings left this year. Could be 7. I don't think it'd ever be 11, but And I guess from my view, we can choose someone with no prior experience. Or you can choose someone with prior experience for these 7, 8, 9, 10 meetings. I've been around long enough to talk to people who served on council, and sometimes they do put in prior council members. So council, we have an opportunity now to appoint someone to be with us for those remaining meetings for 2021. And I mean, I know there's learning curves to this job. We have been, if a council, many of us have been here for a lot of years, and some only for, not only been through 2 years. So, I mean, those are things to consider when it comes to replacing Bob Brown. Discussion, comments at this point in time?
Mayor, I would hope that at the pleasure of council, that the person we would opt for and select would have recent history and understand the dynamic of what our city is going through today in these past years, and be able to sit in for decisions over these next few months. And as you said, Mayor, 7, 8, 9, perhaps 10 meetings, and based on finance decisions as we move into late November, December, whatever those might be for budget in 2022. But I hope, again, at the pleasure of council, that we can decide on someone that would be able to hit the ground running, if you will. Thank you.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor, is it important for the public to know what the charter says about how this appointment is made? Because I have actually just been stopped on the street and said, people say, I would like to be appointed. And I didn't have the charter in front of me, but I think it may be important just for purposes tonight if we could.
It's rather simple. It's basically one line. If a vacancy occurs in the council, except as a result of a recall election, some eligible person shall be chosen by a majority vote of the remaining members to fill a vacancy for the expired term. That's what 3.02 says.
Eligible meaning you must be a resident and of certain age and so forth.
Correct. And whoever we do appoint, they have to be asked if they accept or not accept.
Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor Pullman.
Being the new guy on here too, I think that there has to be somebody experienced that knows what's gone on in the past here, has been involved in it, and that's just my opinion. I don't think we should drag anybody in here new that's hasn't been on council before and is not familiar with some of the past, but there's just too many projects. And trust me, I know Susan and I are overwhelmed a lot of times, you know, being the new people here, but there's a lot to take in. So I think let's find somebody that's going to be experienced at least last few years. My opinion.
So are you looking for us to make a recommendation now, or are you
I
looking?
think if we want to have somebody for the September 8th meeting, possibly for the September 1st meeting, there should be a name or names, and see if we can have somebody that possibly could be here September 1st and September 8th.
Well, the person that comes to my mind when we talk about this kind of stuff would be Kathy Klink, because she has served on council for 2 terms. She has infinite knowledge about council, about the city. She's not running. She could just be able to pick right up. I don't know if anyone else has any names. I just think that she would be a good person under these circumstances. You know, if we were talking about it being longer than just a few months, then I do think maybe we entertain resumes and actually talk to people. But we don't, in my opinion, we don't have the time to go through the interview process. By the time we find somebody, then it's going to be even less time that they'll be here at a meeting.
Mr. Mayor, please. I would concur with with Carla's recommendation. Kathy continues to serve on various committees and commissions of the city. She's keenly involved and understands the fabric. And when I mentioned that prior, the previous council members that might also be considered are doing other things right now. And I think that Kathy would be a logical candidate to be able to serve out through the end of the year and like you said, the next 7, 10, 11 meetings that we might have. And then again, that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to back that up to what Tim said. I think that's a good idea, is looking at previous council members that were elected by the folks, and then those who are, as you said, obviously doing life events and maybe just are not civically engaged anymore. I think Kathy that's a good start.
We've got such a large budget with the utilities and the projects that are going on. And if you mention Kathy, right away what comes to my mind is neighborhoods. And, we're going to continue that as being an emphasis, even for 8, 9, or 10 meetings or more. She's neighborhoods, she knows about looking at these other projects. And the learning curve there, really, it's not that much. It's probably non-existent. Because if you see Kathy, she seems to know what's going on. And she is, somebody used the word engaged. She is engaged.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Can I make a motion then?
Wish to make a motion, you can.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Kathy Klink as a member of the City Council of Hamilton, Ohio for the remainder of the former council member Robert Brown's term ending in December 31st, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
So it's a motion made by Vice Mayor Pullman, seconded by Councilmember Knapp. And she, this doesn't make it exactly, she's got to be sworn in and do all that kind of stuff. She's got to accept what we have done. Any other comments at this point in time? She's got to accept it or not accept it. So.
Could a swearing in occur then before September 1? I think a special meeting then, or the 8th?
We could do it on September 1, or we could do it
okay.
before, or whatever she wants to choose to do. If she chooses to want to be involved again, and
She doesn't even have to, does she have to even be sworn in here at a meeting?
Yeah, she's got to be sworn in. She's an active member, voting member of council.
Mr. Mayor, I believe it would be appropriate from your office, if you would mind reaching out to Kathy as mayor and ask her if she would be willing to serve. She may be even watching tonight on TV. My phone hasn't lit up yet, so she hasn't called. So, would you be willing to do that?
Yes, I will tell her that on this date, provided that we see how the vote goes, but motion by Vice Mayor Pullman, second by Councilmember Knapp. Any other discussion? If there is none, roll call vote.
Pullman.
Yes.
Fear.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Nab.
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
So I will contact her, and if she accepts, she'll finish out the year. She'll be sworn in probably September 1st meeting, and that way she can be involved with our discussion next week, and then September, October, November, and the 1 or 2 December meetings that we have. Okay. That's all I see on the agenda besides the executive session. Did I skip anything?
City manager?
Audience of city manager.
Yeah, right, except for that, right. Not that I meant
that it's important.
There's no agenda item that says 43. Mr. City Manager, would like to address us and the City Manager?
No, thank you.
Okay. I know you do want to, don't you? You don't want to?
No.
Jeez. Okay. Audience and council. Okay. These things, West Side Little League, I think that's our town's version of Rocky. After you lose 9-0 and you come back and win a couple games, that's grit. I'll be honest with you, that's Hamilton, Ohio, and we wish them the best of luck. they do reflect us, and they're great ambassadors of us, and keep on winning.
There, on my way down this afternoon, my wife out the door. They won. When do they play again? Do you know?
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 7. Thank you. And they're more for the audience.
I was able to watch a game today. It was a good game.
But
And they're playing California, is that right?
I believe,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, and the game, not this past game, the other night, on ESPN Top 10 Plays, the center fielder for Hamilton was in the top 10 plays.
They got 2 more games to get to the final.
Yeah.
They have to win 2 more times to get to the
They
final
will.
game. So we're them on.
If I'm not mistaken, Rocky 1, Rocky 2, okay? Rocky finally won, and Rocky 2, the movie. Okay, number 2 on my list, the 20-year anniversary of 9/11 is coming up, and there are going to be some events that particular Saturday, including 9 o'clock remembrance at the Firefighters Memorial, 9:30 event at the Hamilton Flea, and pastors are going to be having a prayer and reflection remembrance. That will probably be in the morning at some time, but that's going to be further settled. And knowing the way we all know people in Hamilton, that remembrance will be done just the right way, very appropriately. Lastly, a couple of us were at the 4th Street Pollinator Garden, and that's an example of where Hamilton acts as a village. I think 18 local groups were involved. Is that right, Carla and Susan? 18 local groups got together and did this with the leadership of Jeff Gambrell and Alfred Hall. And it's amazing what they've been able to do. Drive by, but get out of your car. Take a look at it, and you'll see what is now Pollinator Garden, which also has this designation of being a Monarch City, USA, to go along with Tree City, USA. And there was a nice crowd there last night, and some of those folks are from the neighborhood. And that place is Hamilton, I'll tell you what.
It is.
Somebody said, "This is God." What I said last night, amen to that. So take a look at it. It was that nice of a... Anything else anybody else want to say at this point in time before we ask about executive session? Mr. City Manager, want to go into executive session?
Yes, sir, for 3 different items. The first is to consider confidential information related to specific business strategy of an applicant for economic development assistance. The second is to consider the purchase of property for public purposes. And the final one is to confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
Okay. So the first thing we got to do is we got to make a motion whether or not the executive session is found to be necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with that economic development project or projects.
So moved.
Motion moved by Vice Mayor Pullman.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Fear. Roll call vote on that particular motion, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
Okay, now is there a motion to go into executive session
So moved.
for those stated reasons? Already given by the city manager. Motion made by Councilmember Vaughn, seconded by Councilmember Fear. Roll call vote on that motion, please.
Pullman,
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Nab,
Yes.
Moeller.
Yes.
Motion adopted, 6-0.
Okay, going to executive session at 9:34. We'll come out of executive session just to adjourn the regular meeting. Thank you all for being here and being part of this process.